scores. Second goal of the game deflected in off of a Dallas Stars player to Hayes. Goal line. Backdoor shot on, and he scored. Robert Thomas bounced it off the pad of the goaltender. Blaze shoots it, wrister on. Rebound, and Neighbors scores with 30 seconds to go. In 2:11 of power play time, Neighbors has made it 4-0. Puck comes back to Dellandrea. Knocked to the middle of the net. And Binnington's going to make a glove save. Hayes is going to hold on to the puck, try to go back door with it at the buzzer. It deflects behind the net. And that'll be the end of this preseason contest. A 4-0 win for the Blues and a 25-save shutout for Jordan Binnington.
How about that? A shutout for the Blues last night in the preseason. Blues versus the Dallas Stars. Alex, the Dallas Stars did not have a loss in the preseason going into last night. The Blues were able to hand them one of those big-time L's.
Oh, yeah.
The battle of the Stars, and the Blues prevailed. Let's go, boys.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center, where the Blues are scheduled to have morning skate coming up here in just a little bit. And we open with the St. Louis Blues, where goal suppression, Alex, might just be good enough this time around if last night was any indication.
Yeah, baby, you're speaking my language right now, T-Bone. Everybody's like, man, the defense is so bad. They brought back the same defense. You know what that defense did last night, T-Bone? They shut down Joe Pavelski and Matt Duchene. That's what they did on the ice.
And the rest of the minor league stars?
No, they weren't minor leaguers. They had other guys there. Yeah, Ben was out there. Mason Marchment was out there. They had a couple of defensemen. Come on, man. That was a good lineup.
That's pretty much.
Look, tongue-in-cheek, I stop it. I understand that it's still preseason, and I understand that. Look, I'm personally the one that can't get hurt again because after a 3-0 shutout victory over Edmonton last year, I was ready to hand the Blues the cup. But what I will say is, people remember what Joe told us yesterday, where the new scheme under Mike Weber seems to be like 5 dots on a dice, where that's what they're doing in the in the defensive zone. Last night, Natural Stat Trick is putting together numbers for preseason. Ooh, I know. I'm like, BK, I got real excited last night.
You're speaking his language now.
Tell me about it. But they did not, I think they ended the game with 5 high-danger scoring chances, and 3 of them came in that third period when they pulled the goaltender when they were in a little bit of desperation mode. But in the first 2 periods, the Blues outshot the Dallas Stars, but on top of it, the shots for Dallas were from the outside. And then when they were getting those shots off, it was quick moving puck out of the zone. There weren't those backdoor chances. There weren't those second and third and fourth opportunities. The Blues really managed the waves from the Dallas Stars, I thought, particularly well. And that's not an uncommon theme this preseason, minus that Columbus Blue Jackets game, which, remind you, like the top players in that one were Robert Bortuzzo and Tyler Tucker. When they've had a majority of these NHL defensemen and really the forwards in the games, they've done a decent job of keeping the front of the net open so that Binnington's got a clear shot of these pucks. And I don't know if it's going to work for the full season. Frankly, I'm still a little back and forth with this. But I'll tell you, against one of the better lineups that they've played against this season, where they had their full NHL lineup in, Dallas did not look like the overwhelming powerhouse that they are expected to be.
Yeah, I mean, their top goal scorer wasn't in there. But other than that, it's something that is worth monitoring. Because if this is the real deal, like if the Blues are able to be just average with goal suppression, forget being really good at it. They don't need to be that, because nobody's expecting this to be, like, at least going into the year, a cup contending type of a team. If you're average when it comes to goal suppression with both your defensive core that are a little tighter in their own zone and your goalie, who last night looked really good, stopped all 25 shots that he faced, if that is able to happen, man, we could be talking about this team as a top 3-ish team in the Central Division. Probably closer to 4th and being in that wild card mix. But really, that's what the expectations, that's what the hopes are going into the season. Can you punch up? And if you are able to play a tighter defensive zone, you have the ability to punch up against a team like the Stars that's expected to be one of the top teams in your division. The other thing that would help in that regard is Robert Thomas playing like he did last night, man. Robert Thomas last night goes out there, scores 2 goals for you, and so far in the preseason, at least based on all of the reports that I've seen, not all of these games are available in terms of streaming publicly, so we just have to go by what we hear, what we listen to on the broadcast with Joey and Curbs, who are able to watch these games. It sure sounds like Robert Thomas is taking that next step as a shooter, as a goal scorer. We've known all along the guy has a very good shot. When he is willing to shoot, he is really good at it. His shooting percentage has been high his entire career. Last 2 years, really, he's been right around that 20-goal mark. What if he could get to 30? I'm not saying he's going to.
Someone had a little enchilada sauce with their breakfast.
But the reason why I bring this up is because a lot of the time we talk about Robert Thomas as a potential 100-point producer. He's got that in his range of outcomes. Alex, I'm looking right now at all of the players that have scored at least 100 points since the 2006 season. The only players to do so without scoring 30 goals in that stretch were Joe Thornton back in 2007, Erik Karlsson last year. That's a defenseman. I'm going to throw that into a separate category.
It's a defenseman who's actually a forward, but
exactly
he's appearing as a defenseman.
And Henrik Sedin, who did this back in 2010, where he scored 29 goals. In other words, it is almost a requirement to get to at least 30 goals in order to put up 100 points in this season. Alex, if I told you, I'm telling you nothing else about the Blues going into this season, the one thing you know is that Robert Thomas finishes with 100 points in 2024. This season, 23-24. What does that mean for the Blues this year?
It means they're the 3rd best team in the Central Division. I don't think you could really argue that, because not only are you going to be getting a Robert Thomas who is a 100-point producer, that means that one of Jordan Kyrou or Pavel Buchnevich are putting up 40 to 45 goals, because he's not picking up 100 points and scoring less than 30 goals unless he's dishing out those passes. The power play is going to be very successful if this is the case, and frankly, you've got some elite offense. And this is what Greg Wyshynski said yesterday, despite everybody hearing the negativity. He said it's very possible for a team to be led by one forward line. And if Thomas is putting up 100 points, we're talking about somebody else who's putting up 40, 45 goals, maybe another 100-point player. And I say that they're just as good as Minnesota because the one thing that Minnesota has over St. Louis is they've got Kirill Kaprizov. And Kirill Kaprizov is a legit 100-point player a season. I would say the goaltending is very similar. I would say defensively, slight edge to Minnesota. They got that star power, though. And if Thomas is there, well, welcome to it. And frankly, I think he's got 11 shots through 3 preseason games so far this season, and he's picked up 3 goals. He's shooting the puck so much more, and I would say that's mostly because he's been working with Adam Oates in the offseason.
He's also going to get a lot of opportunities on the power play.
Absolutely.
And that's something that's going to help him in this regard as well. If he's going to be in, that bumper spot right in the middle, he's going to have an opportunity here to put up some big-time goal production in 23.
Yeah, and if he's a 100-point player, I 100% agree with Alex. I think they're a playoff team then. And that also means that he is probably pacing towards that around the deadline, and you're not a seller. That means you are a team that's not going to be looking at potentially moving on from Vrana, moving on from a captain, moving on from a defenseman in Scandella. I don't know if that means the defense is necessarily improving, but you're going to have a top line that you can say that's the line that is going to drive this offense, and you finally have the answer on, is Thomas our number 1 center? Probably one of the biggest questions coming into the year. He's a 100-point guy. That answers that question, and you're probably more than likely a playoff team.
He scored 20 goals. That's the most goals he scored in a season, that 2021-2022 season. You know how many shots he had that season?
21 goals, 15%, 130.
115. He had 115 shots in 72 games. I'm not going to do that quick math for you, but that's
1.5 again.
That's not a lot. If you get a guy who is going to be willing to shoot the puck, he had one preseason game that was 5 shots on goal. If he is going to be shooting at least 3 times a game, we're talking about a 30-goal scorer. People don't talk enough about Robert Thomas' shot because you don't see it. Yep. And if you're willing to use that more, that's going to create more opportunities for Buchnevich and Kyrou. It's going to create more space, and it does put him into that star category rather than just the top-line players.
So let's do some math, shall we?
Let's get off your ath. Let's do some math.
So, if he were to shoot 3 times a game, Alex.
Okay, this is algebra. Go.
That would be roughly 240 shots on the season.
Yeah.
For his career, he has a shooting percentage of 15%. So, if he were to continue at that same pace, 15% shooting percentage this year, putting up 240 shots. This is like a batting average on balls in play type of thing that we're doing here.
I already got the number. I already know the number. 15% of his 240 shots, 25 goals.
No, 36. You were so close, buddy.
Well, 10% of 240 is 24. 5% would be. Oh yeah,
you
you're
got to
right.
do then 50% of that same number.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
36 goals this year.
This is embarrassing for you, Tanner.
For sure.
What?
I'm not even. Don't forget 36. Like that's an astronomical improvement.
That's what I'm hoping.
Put up
Kyra
like
does.
200 shots this year. Get yourself to 30 goals. If you can do that, man, it changes everything. Not just for the outlook of this season, but for the outlook of the future of the organization. Because it means you got it right with Robert Thomas. It means you found a number one centerman. It takes that off of your offseason checklist next year. It means that you can now count on that guy for the next 5 to 7 years of leading your organization up the middle. And now we can focus on the other stuff. What does Jakub Vrana look like? How do we go out and improve our defense? Man, maybe most importantly, that money that you have that is going to be available to you on the cap next year because it's finally going up for the first time in 4 years, well, that can now be spent on your blue line. Go get Noah Hannafin. Go make a big-time trade. Go make the type of move that allows you the opportunity to take the next step as a team. If there could be one answer that you get this year that is important, that helps you in the future, it's Robert Thomas becoming the player that they expect him to be. The way that he does it is by shooting more and getting that goal production up.
2 years ago, 240 shots on goal for Vladimir Tarasenko when he scored 34. Last year, 297 shots for Jordan Kyrou when he scored 37 goals. If you look at the players who scored, the top goal scorers in the NHL.
What did Buchnevich have in terms of shooting last year? Do you know? Do you have that?
I could pull it up real quick for you.
I've got it. In terms of shots on goal from a year ago,
I think it was
Pavel
199.
Buchnevich. Man, ESPN doesn't make this easily readily available.
This is what happens when you do math on the air, kids. Make sure you listen in class. What I was going to say while I look up the Buchnevich number, look at the amount of players who scored the most goals in the NHL last year. They're talking 400, 300, 275 shots on goal. You're not putting up more than 20 goals unless you're shooting more than 200 times in a season.
2 years ago, Pavel Buchnevich had 199 shots on net. You know how many goals he had?
20.
30.
Come on, man. What were we just talking about? 200 goals equals, or 200 shots equal 30 goals.
It felt like a trick question.
No, that one wasn't, actually.
Put your shots on net. Don't randomly do it. We know he's not going to be like out here making crazy moves. He's not going to be the Swaggy P of the NHL where he's just like from the red line.
Let it fly.
Going after it, yeah. But put 200 shots on net, you're going to get yourself to 25, 30 goals. That should be the goal this year from Robert Thomas. So at the end of every game, last year, I think it was Joey who was talking about this. They would have like individual game notes, the goals in terms of like a personal accomplishment for Robert Thomas. Hey, tonight you've got these 3 things that we want to see from you. Be in the offensive zone 50% of the time. All these different things, right? This year, one of the goals for him in every single game should be get 3 shots on net.
Yeah.
If you finish this game with 3 shots on net, you did at least part of your job. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We are out at the Centene Community Ice Center broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios. We'll be doing so each and every Friday throughout the NHL season. The Blues are on the ice here in just a little bit. We're hoping, maybe, possibly, potentially, to have a player join us on the broadcast at some point after they get off the broadcast or off the ice. So we'll let you know if we get any updates on that as we go along today. Coming up during this hour, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, go ahead and get them in on the text line right now. You can always watch us live on YouTube at 101 ESPN STL. But coming up next, is Braves Phillies now the best rivalry that Major League Baseball has to offer? We'll talk about it here on 101 ESPN.
This generation of Philly fans are as good as there is in baseball. This is the loudest fan base right now in the sport in an open stadium. In the sport, it's the loudest. And they love this team. And what they did in August for Trey Turner, when he was slumping that bad and they decided to give him a standing ovation and change his whole season, it changed everything. And there is a brotherly love feeling in that ballpark, and that home field advantage is going to matter in a series like this. We're in for Ali Frazier.
That was Jim Bowden on MLB Network Radio. I think taking a subtle shot at Cardinals fans.
Did you
That's
hear?
what I heard.
I heard him say they're not the best fans in baseball. Phillies fans are.
Yeah, it was implied.
He doesn't know all the loving we did on Contreras earlier this year.
Good point.
There was a lot of loving on him.
Did you see the love that was shown towards Adam Wainwright in the final weekend of the year?
Put on a concert at Busch Stadium. There was a lot of love there.
Let's ignore the part that they booed Mo, but yeah, they loved Wayne.
No, they were saying nude bar.
Yeah, that's right.
That was deserved.
Man, I'm sounding like a seal right now.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex going to be doing seal noises the rest of the show today. It's one of his new fortes. So, Phillies versus Braves. I think there's a pretty good argument to be made. This is currently the best rivalry in baseball. In fact, I'm not really sure there's another good one that's taking place right now. Now, we're always going to have the historic rivalries, right? Like Red Sox, Yankees, still matters to people that are in that region whenever they play against one another. Cardinals versus Cubs still matters here in St. Louis, still matters to the Cubs fans whenever those two teams go head-to-head. Giants versus Dodgers, same thing. Those are historic rivalries. But what makes a great rivalry is something that has a little bit of history.
Hatred.
Mixed with a competitiveness that takes place during the postseason. And last year, the Phillies sent the best team in baseball home. And this year, they're going to meet once again with the opportunity to do the exact same thing prior to the NLCS. Alex, I think it's the best rivalry that we have in the sport. And this series, to me, is no doubt about it the headliner going into the NLDS.
Absolutely. I personally feel like the best rivalry is when you hate the other team. And I think you have that. Well, it's not that I think. You do have that, but between these two squads. We came into the season talking about Cincinnati and Kansas City in football, of being the best rivalry in football, because why? They were talking trash on each other. What we saw between Colorado and Colorado State in college football, you were making it to be this pay-per-view event. And look at the personalities you have on these two teams. You've got Bryce Harper, who's chucking his helmet into the stands because Angel Hernandez is terrible at his job, or you've got Ronald Acuna Jr., who's picking up the bases when he's stealing. Like, you've got so much personality on these two teams. There's not even a close second in Major League Baseball right now of rivalries. And save the text, because I know it's Cardinals-Cubs. Cardinals-Cubs is a historical rivalry,
correct,
like Yankees and Red Sox. But you're going to have to both be competitive again for it to get back to that hatred. This right here is appointment television every season when they play.
It has a chance to be like what Philly and Dallas, I think, is going to be over the next few years in the NFL, where the Eagles and the Cowboys are considered to be two of, if not the two best teams in the NFC. I think I would throw the 49ers in there. I know T-Bone would disagree because he thinks that Brock Purdy's terrible, but
you'll find out this weekend.
I think that those are two of the three at a minimum best teams in the NFC. And when you have that and you've got the history that's brought into the conversation, man, that's what makes for a special rivalry. It's why I'm excited for this offseason. The Cardinals are going to try to get back to being competitive again. The Cubs are competitive, and now they're going to try to go out there and add significant pieces to the core that they have now developed. That has the potential to get you back to where you were in like 2016, 2015. Those were some really fun seasons when the Cardinals and the Cubs were going back and forth. That's what you want to see. That's what the Phillies and the Braves have.
Yeah, and I think what makes it even better, too, is the fact that the Phillies, who are the quote-unquote underdog in this series, are the team that sent them home last year. That's what you need in our good rivalries. You need that underdog to be kind of that pesque for a team. And I think the Braves, because they've got their core locked up long-term, are a team that has the potential to be viewed as a dynasty moving forward. And last year they got shut down by the Philadelphia Phillies, who, let's just be honest, were not the better team. The Braves were dealing with injuries. Well, they're dealing with injuries coming into this series as well, and they've got to get past the Philadelphia Phillies. The Braves are the big brother that don't have the athletic ability, and the little brother keeps showing them up right now. And that's what this series kind of feels like. Can the Braves...
A little personal, T-Bone. You got a big brother?
I don't. No. I was definitely the most athletic in my family. I look at this series as the Braves are the favorite. They have the potential to be a dynasty, but it could be back-to-back years in which you get knocked out by your rival in the Philadelphia Phillies, who are just built for October. And that's it feels like the Braves, this is their kind of the monster that they have to slay before they can get back to being that team that is into the World Series and the team that can create this dynasty.
You know what it feels like, to localize it? It felt like what the Blues had with the Blackhawks every postseason. Yeah. And we all remember that time that they had to slay that giant. Now, I know it's flipped because the Blackhawks were basically the Braves and the Phillies were the Blues in this circumstance, but the Braves, I would imagine, have this feeling in the back of their mind like Blues fans did, where it's like, man, we've got to find a way to get past this team. When we do, that's when we could get back to that top tier. And now you've got the shadow always lurking over you of, man, how are we going to handle Wheeler and Nola? How are we going to deal with Harper and Turner and Schwarber? Every offseason they spend all of the money. They go all in. And you're the Braves thinking, man, we've built this from the ground up, and we're still struggling against this squad.
So The Athletic put out a piece earlier today. It's by our friend and I think one of the best baseball writers in the world, Jason Stark. And he looked into this. He asked the question of kind of what Alex is discussing there. When was the last time a two-time division champ was ousted by the same division rival 2 years in a row? So the team that won the division lost in the postseason to the same division rival that was a wild card team back-to-back seasons. It hasn't happened. So you look at it, the Yankees and the Red Sox, 03-04. In 2003, Aaron Boone. And then in 2004, the comeback that we all remember. And then 04-05, the Astros versus the Cardinals here in St. Louis. That's the closest thing that we've seen to this. So it's been 20 years since we've seen anything remotely resembling what we could see if the Phillies are able to take down the Braves once again. Do you think they can do it? Because as I look at their roster, as I look at the way that they're assembled, I read the quotes in this piece from Skip Schumacher, who was talking about how he's going to have nightmares about Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler because they've sent his team home each of the last two postseasons. That's the hope. If you're the Phillies, the hope lies on two things. One, we have a clear and definitive starting pitching advantage. Wheeler and Nola are the thing that we need to carry us in this series. And two, man, we've got star power in our lineup. And with the issues that the Braves are handling right now in their rotation, that lineup could have just enough to put them over the top. I think they can, and I think they're going to win the series. But, T-Bone, where do you lie on that?
I don't think they can because I think the schedule benefits the Braves. If this was how the American League DS is set up, where it is game one, game two, back-to-back, like it typically has been in the past, it becomes a little bit tougher for the Braves to kind of get around these pitching issues, free dealing with the blister. Charlie Morton won't be available until the CS. But because it is set up to where they play game one on Saturday and they don't have game two until Monday, it allows for them to definitely get Strider in twice. I think they can even get Fried in twice the way the schedule plays out also. So I think with that, I know Fried's dealing with a blister. I don't think that's going to be a massive issue for him. I think he's going to be able to pitch. I think he's, one, healthy, but two, I think he's going to be able to come back and pitch well. I don't think the Phillies can do it this year. I really don't. The pitching is now, it's not at 100%, but it's at like 90%. And last year going into that series, the Braves were nowhere close to 100% with their pitching staff. So I think the Braves can do this. I think they can win this.
I don't know if Fried's at 100%.
I think they win this in 4 games. That would be my guess.
I'm fascinated with this series. I think the Braves get this job done, but here's why I'm a little hesitant. If this was a 7-game series, I'd say Philly doesn't have a chance. I'd say the Braves are going to win that. The longevity of it is going to benefit them. But because it's 5 games, and because you've got a couple of guys on the Atlanta Braves that feel invincible right now. Like if you're Ronald Acuna and if you're Matt Olson, you feel invincible. You've set records. You hit 50-plus bombs in a season. You feel like you can't be stopped. Whereas the Phillies just cakewalked through the wild card game, and now you're going back into this where you just took this team down last year. So I'm very curious. I do think the Braves prevail. I think this goes 5 games.
The reason why I think there's a real – do we know is Wheeler going to be able to start tomorrow?
See, he started, game 1, which was, Tuesday?
It would have been on the 3rd, right? So 1, 2, 3. It would only be 3 days rest.
They're not going to do that quick.
He will probably not pitch till game 2. They probably won't get to Wheeler till game 2, and they'll probably get to Nolan 3.
Which is good for them if you could find a way to win game 1.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to. I mean, that's going to be the hardest part. But if you're taking on a non-100% Max Fried,
because the reason why I ask is because that means you won't see 2 games of Nola in this series. You'll get 2 games of Wheeler potentially, and 1 game of Nola in this series. I wonder if they try to push that. If they say, you know what, we're going to try to push Zach Wheeler to get him in game 1. We'll get, because Nola could technically be on regular rest by Monday.
Because those 2 days off in between.
So if you were able to do it with Wheeler on Saturday and then Nola on Monday, you might be able to figure out a way to kind of make this thing work.
If somebody was going to do it, it would be Zach Wheeler. That would go on 3 days rest. That would say, like, bleep it, give me the ball, and let's go. I could see Wheeler doing it.
It's risky.
That's what
risky.
I was just about to bring up is if you do that, you're going all in the DS series, which, look, you may have to just to get to the CS, and I get it. You think about tomorrow later. You can't play for tomorrow. You got to play for today. But that is one of those to where that has such a ripple effect down the road that you go from, okay, we went all in the DS. Now do we have enough muster to get through the CS? We're not even talking about before you even get to a World Series. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to let him get full rest and just say, okay, can we figure it out in game 1? That would be what I would do if I'm the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah, it does change a little bit, some of the calculus on what these teams are able to do with their pitching. That the wild card round should have a negative effect on teams. Like, you not being a top 2 seed should have a negative effect, and it does in this scenario. Philly had won their division. They would be able to set up their pitching in a way where they could have Wheeler in game 1, Nola game 2, and then you could go back to Wheeler potentially by game 4 and then Nola for game 5 if that's what they wanted to do. Instead, you're going to see 2 games of Wheeler and 1 game of Nola. So you lose one of those games of Nola in this series, and that completely changes the way that this series ends up looking. One other thing that I did want to bring up real quick before we get to our NFL weekend look ahead. If you're a Cardinals fan and you're looking to like reverse engineer some of these teams that are currently playing in the postseason, it's not hard to see what the theme is. All of them were hyper-aggressive. The Minnesota Twins, despite being in one of the smallest markets in Major League Baseball, decided to sign Carlos Correa after both the Giants and the Mets were like, no, there's some injury issues here. The Rangers have spent hundreds of millions of dollars over the past couple of off seasons on DeGrom, Simeon, Seager, and more. The Phillies went out and acquired Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Nick Castellanos, and Kyle Schwarber. The Braves have signed their entire core, basically, to long-term contracts. The Dodgers, maybe the closest thing to the Cardinals that you could see that is currently playing in the postseason, traded for Mookie Betts, the non-Cardinals part of it, gave him a 10-year deal, and then ended up going out and signing a guy that is over the age of 30 to a massive contract as well by getting Freddie Freeman. The Diamondbacks last offseason traded Dalton Varsho, who was a former top 100 prospect in Major League Baseball, to the Blue Jays for Gabriel Moreno and Lourdes Gurriel this past offseason. That has paid off in a great way for the Diamondbacks this season. Moreno plus defender behind the plate ended up being worth 4 wins above replacement this year. Gurriel hit 25 homers for them this year, is a starting caliber outfielder worth a 3-win season this year as well. That's the kind of stuff you have to do. You have to be willing to go out there and take a risk. The only team that hasn't really, that is still remaining in the postseason today, is the Baltimore Orioles. And they took the risk of tanking for multiple seasons to be able to get.
They took a risk in going after Jack Flaherty.
How'd that go out for him?
Well, he's a great bullpen.
The reason why I don't think that they can go up against the Rangers is because they weren't risky enough at the trade deadline to go out there and get a legit starting pitcher.
Yeah.
They needed something. And you go into the series against the Rangers, I just don't know that they're going to have enough.
And I think I think the Cardinals can kind of, and maybe you can't do what I'm about to say. You have to pick a path and go down this 100%. I think the Cardinals can take 2 of these teams and kind of pay the path to how they fix the rotation. I think one is the Rangers. I think you sign 2 starting pitchers this offseason. And then I think the third is the D-backs. You trade one of a top 100 prospect who you think had, and he doesn't necessarily have to be a top 100 prospect, a guy that you think belongs with this team and is a part of this core. Varsho was that guy for the Arizona Diamondbacks. You go out and you get the pitcher that you need. What did Arizona need this offseason? Wow. What did Arizona need this offseason? They needed a catcher that was going to come in and compete with Carson Kelly, and Moreno did that. In fact, he won the job, and they DFA'd Carson Kelly.
Basically took his job.
And you go out and you get a bat that they thought would help them in the outfield in Gurriel. I mean, they did exactly what the Cardinals should be doing, which is take the path of the Rangers, go out, and if you're going to spend money, go out and get 2 top dogs. And if you're looking for a number 5 or a number 4 with control, trade away a piece of your core and go get that guy that comes comes in and helps you, because Arizona would love to keep Dalton Varsho.
Yeah, he's a good player.
He's a good player. But they said, you know what? We need another catcher, and we need someone that's going to help our lineup in Gurriel and also Moreno.
You mean they looked at their squad and they said, we're good, but we're not good enough. And guess what? We've got a ton of these guys, and we don't have these guys. Let's trade one of this so we can get better.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, we'll get to our weekend look ahead for the NFL slate. What's the matchup you're most looking forward to? And what's the upset pick you've got going into the weekend? We'll give you them next year on 101 ESPN.
Grant Francis here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Last night, the Blues were in Dallas. They shut out the Stars 4-0. Jordan Binnington, a 25-save shutout last night. Robert Thomas had 2 goals. Jake Neighbors had 1, and Justin Falk had the other in the 4-0 Blues victory. Blues will be back tonight. They're in St. Louis to take on the Blackhawks in the final game of the preseason. We'll have pregame coverage starting with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale here on your home for the Blues 101 101 ESPN at 6 o'clock. And before that, you can tune in to hear some college football. Oklahoma and Texas, that pregame starting at 11 o'clock. I'm Grant Francis. The Sports Center update's been driven by Johnny Londoff. Find new roads and shop 24/7 at londoff.com and londoffautoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
All right, let's get into some NFL weekend look ahead alongside Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. Alex, let's start out with this. What is the matchup that you're going to be most looking forward to this weekend? You get to sit down in front of your TV, and we know this isn't the way we watch football. We all watch the Red Zone channel on Sundays. However, if you could only watch one game, what would you have on the big TV on Sunday?
I mean, I think we all can answer at the same time. It's Cowboys and 49ers.
Sunday night.
I mean, that's the best. I mean, that's a preview of what the NFC Championship game could be for how good these two teams are. If I were to pick a dark horse, though, that would be intriguing to me is the Eagles and Rams.
Yeah.
Especially
really
now that we
one.
found out that Kupp's going to be back. Puka obviously has been really impressive. They've done more than I've expected them to do. I'm more interested in that of seeing if Philadelphia is real or not, because Philadelphia I'm so confused by. And now you're actually going to go up against a talented offense with Cooper Kupp returning. So that would be a dark horse game for me.
Get back to that game here in just a little bit. For me, T-Bone, what's your game that you're most looking forward to?
So I did
Other
like
than those are the obvious.
I like that one and the Rams one too.
Alex, they were correct answers.
You know what? Shove that in your mouth,
If we had the squirt bottle, somebody would be getting squirted
Stick
right
that
now.
in your mouth.
I think the one that is going to be kind of fun to watch is the Texans and Falcons.
All right, those are my three games.
Because
Well, game over, guys.
C.J. Stroud's been playing really well. You talked about it yesterday. He's been one of the most, if not the most impressive rookie, the second one right behind Richardson. And he hasn't thrown an interception, hasn't turned the ball over. And the Falcons, they got to start showing more signs of things with Desmond Ridder at quarterback. He's just not doing it for me. I think they can run the ball well. They've got a ton of weapons, though, and Ridder's not getting the football. I think that game's super important. I find that one to be intriguing.
All right, so since you guys took all of the games that I was going to mention here, 49ers, Cowboys as Sunday Night Football, Eagles, Rams as another, and then Texans versus
Try
Falcons.
to be creative.
They were the easy choice.
The number 4 matchup of the week. I don't know that this is going to be like a highly competitive game, but I think it's going to be highly entertaining, if nothing else.
The Jets, Broncos.
Chiefs, Vikings.
Oh.
I think there's going to be a ton of
Giants,
points in this
Dolphins.
one. The Chiefs, their defense has been very good this year so far. It's been what's honestly kept them in having the ability to stay alive through the first 4 weeks of the season. The Vikings offense, though, is spectacular when they're not shooting themselves in the foot. When they're not turning the ball over, they more or less can't be stopped. Kirk Cousins putting up historically great numbers through 4 games. Justin Jefferson is putting up like 150 yards every single game. Alexander Madison has gotten it going on the ground the last couple of weeks. It's been a really good offense. So I'm going to be entertained watching this game, even if I think the Chiefs might be able to pull away. So that would be my matchup that I'd be watching, other than the 3 that you have already mentioned.
So
All
you're
right,
not
Alex.
watching Giants and Dolphins?
Nope, that's not going to be on my television. If that touches my TV for more than 5 minutes on Sunday, and it should exclusively be the touchdowns from the Dolphins, something has gone horribly
BK
awry.
will be calling to complain to NFL Red Zone. Be like, can you get this game off
Scott
the television?
Hansen, I'm done. I'm done with this. I don't need to see any more of Tua Tagovailoa thrown for 500 yards.
I hate this, Scott. Turn it off.
No more Tyreek Hill highlights, man. It puts me, it haunts my dreams. Alex, what's your upset pick? Got to be at least a 3-point underdog.
Oh,
to
really?
qualify.
No, you can't throw that one in because 2.5. Can I squeeze in with 2.5?
That's not a real underdog.
What are you talking about?
Unless it's a 2.5-point underdog at home.
Okay, 2.5 underdog at home. It's the Colts over the Titans.
Okay.
I don't understand that. Now I sound like BK with my picks. I don't understand this spread right now.
That's gone really well for me.
I mean, they're getting Jonathan Taylor back. Anthony Richardson looks like the superior quarterback over Ryan Tannehill. And frankly, I think the Colts defense is going to be able to
been
handle
good
that
this year,
Titans.
man.
Who?
The Colts defense has been good
I thought
this
you
year.
were going to
I'm
say
with
Tannehill. I'm like, what? No, he hasn't.
No.
I saw that spread and
Keep cooking, man.
sneak preview into what we're going to talk about in the next hour. But this one, I think, is an easy upset, and Colts taking out the Titans at home.
Easy. Okay.
I'm actually surprised that none of us said this game, maybe because it's early in the morning, and I don't want to be up this early on a Sunday.
True that.
I've got Jacksonville over the Bills this weekend.
I have a
Jacksonville's
rule.
Yeah.
I don't bet on
London
games that are played in London.
That's
I don't
fair.
bet on games that go East Coast to West Coast.
Same. No, West Coast to East.
It's the opposite. But you're close, man.
Yeah.
No, it's Alex actually has the opposite rule.
Yeah.
East Coast to West Coast where they feel like they're playing at 3 p.m.
Yeah, geometry wasn't my best subject.
I think Jacksonville takes down the Bills. I think it's twofold for me. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars, they've been in London from last week, so they've kind of adjusted. They've been practicing there. The Bills are going over for the first time, and that can be kind of a rude wake-up call for them. I like the Jacksonville Jaguars. Plus, let's just be honest. This feels like a game where Josh Allen's going to Josh Allen.
100%.
He's been playing well for 3 games in a row. He's due for a bad one, so I like
glad
Jacksonville.
you two are on that side because it makes me feel better about me being confident the Bills are taking down that victory.
Okay. I like it. I would not touch.
Von Miller's back, boys.
Weird stuff happens in these games where like suddenly there's 7 turnovers and you're watching, it's like 11:30, you just had your second cup of coffee and you're like, am I seeing this right? That the Jaguars are winning, but it's 13-6. What is happening in this game? Okay, so that's kind of my stance on this. T-Bone, I think I'm going to make you happy. Or sad. I don't know which one. I am very curious to see what it looks like as the Rams at home as a 4-point underdog take on the Philadelphia Eagles.
Not even my lucky shirt can get rid of the BKO.
The Eagles have been playing far closer games than they should be so far this year. Beat the Patriots by 5. Patriots stink, man. Beat the Vikings by 6. Vikings aren't very good. Beat the Bucks by 14. That actually is looking better in hindsight. And then last week, did you guys watch the Commanders last night? You see that game? They look very good to you?
I watched Justin Fields pick up 35 points for your boy.
34-31 was the score of that game for the Eagles versus the Commanders. Traveling East Coast to West Coast. It is a 3 o'clock start. I'm very curious about that one. That would be my upset pick of the week. Rams taking down the Eagles in what is a surprise to everyone at home. Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua leading the way with Matthew Stafford.
You guys are just building my parlay right now of fading BK.
What is the team, Alex, for you that has the most to gain this weekend with a win?
This is going to sound odd to say because I think a lot of people view them already as a favorite, but I think it's the Cowboys. And you could take the other side of this, too, with the 49ers. But the reason I'm saying the Cowboys is, okay, the defense has been incredible. But they haven't gone up against this type of offense with McCaffrey, with Ayuk, with Deebo Samuel. But on the flip side of it, I don't think Dak Prescott has looked like a Super Bowl championship caliber quarterback. I think he's made bad decisions in the red zone. I think the only reason this team is so dominant right now is because of his defense. So the team that's got most to prove would be the Cowboys, because if they can go out there and look good offensively against that defense, on top of finding ways to eliminate Christian McCaffrey, I'm all aboard the Cowboys train in terms of a Super Bowl championship.
For me, it's the Rams. I think the Rams are a team that have the most to gain with a win this week. Because one, it's an upset versus the Philadelphia Eagles. I think if they win this weekend, I think everybody goes from, maybe they are a playoff team to they're going to be a playoff team. Because you look at their wins on their schedule. The win opening weekend at Seattle, that just looks like an egg that was laid by the Seattle Seahawks. They lost to the 49ers, who were clearly a better team. They laid an egg against the Cincinnati Bengals, and they beat the Colts that, though we're high on Indianapolis on this show, they're like a fringe playoff team in the AFC. You beat the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the top teams in the NFC. You suddenly go from a team that everybody looks at as like, well, that offense is great, the defense is just kind of blah, to, whoa, we've been sleeping on the Rams. They look like a playoff team.
Okay, just second, yes. Everything that T-Bone just said, use that and apply it for me as well. That's my team. The other thing that I wanted to go to here, the team that has the most to lose this week, I'll start on this one. The Cincinnati Bengals.
Yep, that was mine.
Have the most to lose this week. On the road at what I think is maybe one of the most surprising stories of the season, the Arizona Cardinals. I don't have the gumption, the intestinal fortitude to make the call and say that Arizona's going to win this game. But if we get to 6:30 on Sunday evening, and the Cardinals are winning that game like 20-17, nobody should be surprised. They are, right now, the better football team. Based on what we've seen through the first month of the season, the Cardinals are better than the Bengals. That being said, it's still the Bengals, man. You've still got Joe Burrow on the other sideline, and I still anticipate at some point they're going to get themselves right. But if they don't, if they struggle offensively once again, man, you're getting more than a month into the season, and we haven't seen them play a quality football game yet. So they're, for me, the team that has the most to lose. Bengals on the road at Arizona. Man, you got to start showing me something. And not just a win. I'm talking to, like, put up 30 points for the first time so far this year.
I'll give you another one because that's the obvious one, and that's the one that I like. But I'd say the Jets. And I think the Jets are going to clearly lose. Yeah, I think they're going to clearly win that game because Denver's just awful. But if
Do you? They're an underdog.
Which is just, sound like BK again. Can someone explain to me how the Broncos are an underdog?
You are destined for an 0-3 this weekend.
I looked at that game for like an hour yesterday, just staring at it, saying to myself, are you prepared to get punished because you chose Zach Wilson coming off of
But it's not even Zach Wilson. Have you seen the running back numbers against the Broncos this season? Every running back has been like RB1 when they play against them. And you're talking about Breece Hall not having any limitations. If you lose that game, if you're the Jets, one, your defense isn't as good as people are making it out to be because you're letting Russell Wilson run wild on you like Hulkamania. Two, what is your problem with play calling, Robert Saleh? Like, why are you letting Zach Wilson do all of this when the running backs seem to have success? I think the Jets go to a team that's a joke if you lose this game.
So I agree with you on the Bengals one. The one that I would throw out here is the New Orleans Saints. That's even in New England. And that's a bad football team with the Patriots. And the Saints, I understand Carr's dealing with an injury. I even said this last week. I feared they were going to lose that game to Tampa Bay. And not only did they lose, they got throttled. They are not playing well offensively. For all the talk about the New Orleans Saints and how they could be the team that can win the South and how they acquired Derek Carr to be the answer quarterback, he's not been very good. That offense is doing nothing. They lose to New England. This is their upcoming schedule. Though it's not really tough, it is enough to where I could look at it and go, they could lose the next 3 if they lose to New England. They go to Houston, host Jacksonville, at the Colts.
Oh, the New England Patriots are a bottom 7 team in the NFL. If you lose this game, you can lose to anybody.
And if you lose to them, they could lose the next 3. And all of a sudden, we're talking about a team that's 2-6. Yeah, this is a must-win for the New Orleans Saints. They lose this game, you can cross them off in the NFC South.
He's Tanner Hendrickson. That is Alex Ferrario, and I'm Brandon Kiley. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. Coming up in the 12 o'clock hour, we will get to our football pick'em. We are starting a new month of picks for the show. That means we start anew, we start fresh. All of us are 0-0, and some of us have an opportunity to regain some of our sanity as we move forward here. So we'll get into that coming up in the 12 o'clock hour. But coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything, sports or otherwise, here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Ask Us Anything. If you guys have any questions, sports or otherwise, go ahead and get them in on the text line right now. Let's start with this from the 314. Guys, is there a recreational sport that you guys really enjoy and would like to compete in? For example, badminton, ultimate frisbee, cornhole, etc. What is your best rec sports?
Mine would probably be disc golf. I like to play disc golf on like weekends when it's nice. Like if I were in town this weekend, it'd be a perfect weekend to go play some disc golf, a couple courses by me. I would love to go play on like a tournament like disc golf place. And that's not saying the places around here aren't nice, because they are really nice. But those ones are super cool, super neat to see. They've got like, it's basically like a golf course. Yeah. So I would say disc golf would be the one for me.
Dodgeball.
Ooh.
Nobody has dodgeball leagues anymore, and it pisses me off. I used to play at like a rec center up by my house when I was in high school and college, and I'd like get a buddies together and we'd go do it, and it was so much fun. And then they just stopped doing them. That's mine.
I like
a
that.
101 ESPN dodgeball team. Are you kidding me?
Oh.
Have you ever played spike ball?
That's fun too.
Yeah, that's
I
fun.
love
That's with
spike
the trampolines, right?
Yeah.
That's a fun one.
Have you played it like inside where it can bounce off of walls and stuff too? 'Cause
No.
that's even more crazy.
We've got the actual.
Outdoor.
I used to love racquetball until my dad would just hit the balls at me and be like, oh, this isn't fun.
T-Bone, you're a tennis guy, so I mean that pickleball would probably be up your alley. I've
Yeah.
never played pickleball. I've heard great things about it, but I'm terrible at what is it? Ping pong. So I'm gonna be terrible at pickleball, guaranteed.
I'll play pickleball, but I'd much rather play tennis than pickleball. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just.
See, I'd rather do racquetball than all of those.
Maybe
really.
I'm just pretending I'm still
I used
in
to
shape and
love
can run around.
racquetball. Wow, yeah, that's the other
I
problem.
used to play racquetball back in the day. It's fun.
My dad and I would go
played racquetball.
every Sunday.
It's so fast paced.
Yeah.
I love.
My dad and I used to go every Sunday.
We should go every Sunday.
No, God, no. I'd have a heart attack.
Come on.
From the 618, BK, going to the MIZZOU tonight. What's a good spot to hang out at? Oh God, so many.
Well,
depends what kind of
next segment.
Depends what kind of vibe you're looking for. If you're looking for just like a college bar scene, Harpo's was my spot. If you're looking for a little bit more chill, you could go to Shiloh. They've got some really good wings over there, good food. If you're looking for just really good food, my favorite spot is CJ's Wings. If you're looking for like a brewery, you could go over there. They've got a few of them in town. But yeah, I would say the biggest thing that I would do is go to CJ's Wings. Go to CJ's.
Hooters.
That's the number one spot.
There's a Hooters in Columbia, right?
There is. There is indeed.
There you go. Great wings, I've heard. And French fries, curly fries. Love me some curly fries.
Other people will tell you other recommendations. Like they'll tell you need to go to Shakespeare's Pizza. It's good. If you want to go there.
How you get ish on Shakespeare's Pizza? I love Shakespeare's Pizza.
It's good.
Oh, but it's not authentic Como. You gotta go authentic
No, it's
Como.
very authentic Como.
You gotta go get the wings from my favorite spot.
Booch's is a really good spot if you want to go get some burgers. They accept cash only, so it's like an old school spot.
I don't trust people. I don't trust people that only carry cash.
Yeah.
I don't trust people that
never
only
have
carry
cash on me.
Never. I don't think I've had cash on me since I was 18 years old.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, do you know if they're doing the Toy Story broadcast for the London game again? My 4-year-old absolutely loved that. Our 4-year-old here on the show also really enjoyed it.
I did enjoy
T-Bone?
it. I don't think they are doing it, is my understanding. What a jerk comment. I don't think they're doing it because that was a ESPN thing.
I have this image in my head of Tanner sitting on his couch in his apartment with his Buzz Lightyear costume on. And he
got his
opens up
onesie
his
on.
wings. He's like, to
And beyond! No, I don't think they're doing it this week, unfortunately. But I've heard really good reviews of that. Not just from T-Bone, but also from like family members that watched with their kids. It sounds like it really ended up being a hit. It's something that I will give the NFL a lot of credit for. They have been, like, whether it's the Nickelodeon broadcast with the slime stuff going on, or this year the Toy Story broadcast, they've been willing to try things that I don't think we've seen that from them in the past. So I'll give them a lot of credit for that, because it does take some guts. You have to put money, investment into stuff like this, and they've been willing to do it.
Credit to the NFL for because they were the ones that started the Nickelodeon broadcast. Credit to the NHL. The NHL did this. I can't remember what the characters were they used, but they did the first animated broadcast. It wasn't Toy Story. I can't remember what the TV show was.
Yeah, I don't.
They did it last year between like a Rangers and like Capitals game, and it was kind of the same thought process.
Was it like bubble hockey or like air hockey or something? I do
can't
remember what you're
it was,
talking
but
about. Yeah.
The NHL was the first one to do it, and that was pretty cool too.
Are you sure?
And
I
NFL
think
did.
the NFL did the slime like a couple of years
Yeah,
ago.
I thought the slime was first.
Slime was first, but those weren't animated characters.
I see what you're saying.
These
This was
were
the football
true,
game where they like,
yeah, they
there's
threw all
slime
kind of
that's coming
graphics on it.
Yeah.
This was
see what you're
the
saying.
NHL was the first one to say we can take. I think it's motion capturing.
they were-
and use that to create it into animated players.
Yeah, it was the Big City Greens game
That's
is what it was, and they were like just bubble hockey players or something like that. But yeah, they did that last year.
That was cool too.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Couple more questions here, guys. Critical question: how do I get out of an event that I agreed to go with my with my wife so I can go out with the boys instead? Alex, I think you're a pro at this, right?
What?
No, he wouldn't go out with the boys.
Yeah, I don't go out with the boys. Are you kidding me? The only thing, if I'm getting out of something, it's so I could stay home. I go everywhere with my wife, so I don't really try and get out of stuff. But diarrhea is the way to go.
See, I was going to go with the classic, oh, I'm stuck at work. I don't think I'm going to be able to make it.
No, they'll find that out, and then that's lying, and then you're screwed. If you say you got diarrhea, you just sit in the bathroom.
That's lying, too.
Yeah, but they won't find out. Nobody's gonna pry into your bowel problems.
I can't believe that's your number one answer. I mean,
It
actually,
works.
I'm not shocked that that's your number one
Got
answer.
irritable bowel syndrome, man. It works.
Hey, man, this is one of those things you just got to be honest. You got to tell your wife, hey,
I don't want to hang out with you. I'd rather hang out with the boys.
Don't do that either.
Definitely don't frame it that way.
The boys are more important than you.
Listen, I haven't gone out with the guys in about a month. I want you to take an opportunity to go out with the girls next weekend. Do you mind if we reschedule our date that we had scheduled for this upcoming weekend? I'd love to do it again. It's on me, but the guys are all getting together on Saturday night. It's a big game. Do you mind if we do it? And if she says no, hey, man, you got shot down.
Yeah,
and you had already scheduled this with your wife, and that's sometimes you just got to eat it. But that's what
I do with golf every
week. You
week.
got to be honest.
I just ask my wife, are you cool if I go play golf? And if she says no, then I don't go golf.
Where'd that text come from? What was it, 618-314?
Something like that.
Whoever sent that text in, sorry, man, you're screwed. Just text us and tell how the event went on Monday.
All right, last one here. Alex, this is for you. Guys, I'm a girl dad. I've got a 14-year-old daughter. I finally got to meet her boyfriend. He didn't shake my hand. Should I view that as a red flag?
Absolutely. Game over. Red flag immediately.
What?
Are you kidding me? It is.
That's a very big red flag.
So if I'm a dad and I put my hand out to say nice to meet you and you don't shake my hand,
He's just shy.
I don't care. How are you shy from shaking my hand?
He's nervous. First time meeting.
You know what
parents.
I do? I look at him and I say, why don't you walk back outside and come back in and let's try that again.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Have some damn manners.
Here's the important thing to remember. Your daughter's 14. She ain't going to marry this guy, most likely. Chances are this guy is one of many that you will meet over the next 5+ years. So I wouldn't read too much into it. If this kid was 18 years old or 22 years old and he was coming over and he shies away, doesn't shake your hand, doesn't look you in the eye, anything like that, then we've got a little bit of an issue. But at 14 years old, red flag, definitely, but I would say reel it in a little bit on the on crushing him. Or telling your daughter hey, you can't be with him.
No, I think I might be setting the standards there. It's if you're gonna treat me like that, how are you gonna treat my daughter?
He's a 14-year-old
Don't
kid.
care.
He doesn't know better, and he's probably shy. And honestly,
3 red flags for me.
Scared to meet.
You don't shake hands. You don't stand up when I say hi to you. Like you're sitting down and I walk in and say hello and you're just sitting there and say what's up.
Up if you say hi to me.
Stand up. And you don't take your hat off when you walk in my house.
Oh, I'm not taking my hat off in your house.
Well,
no chance.
guess what? You're not
This guy
dating either
wearing
of
a
my
hat
daughters.
in the studio right now.
Hat comes off when you walk in the house. Hat comes off when you go in the house and when you sit at the dinner
That's
table.
nonsense, by
Not
the way.
when
The
you come
dinner
to work.
table, okay.
Ask
That's
my wife. I
nonsense.
promise you. Hat comes off when I walk in the
I
house
believe
and
you
dinner
do it.
table.
It's nonsense.
No, it's
you don't
not
need
nonsense.
to do that.
Well, you know what? I set good standards.
With Alex and
So
T-Bone,
old
I'm
school.
BK. Coming up next, what do we need to see from Jordan Binnington this season? Alex is going to tell you why he's going to be the best goalie in the NHL. He'll do so next here on 101 ESPN.
Stars shoot it. What a save by Binnington. Stankoven put it to the net and through two bodies. Binnington got a right pad on it. Puck comes back to Delandria. Knocked to the middle of the net. And Binnington's going to make a glove save. Curls it at the hash marks, far side. A slap shot. And that puck somehow stayed out. I think Binnington had a piece of it.
He absolutely did. He got the left pad.
Save.
Left pad on it. Marshman from Duchesne crossed the seam. Unbelievable save there.
That's what it sounded like as Jordan Binnington shuts down the Dallas Stars last night in his, I would assume, final preseason matchup for him going into the 2023 season. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out of the Centene Community Ice Center, where the Blues are currently on the ice for morning skate. Alex, Jordan Binnington looked great last night. Saved all 24 shots that he saw. Ended up with a shutout on the night. What do we need to see from Jordan Binnington this year? Because yesterday we talked with Greg Wyshynski, noted Jordan Binnington hater. A lot of his points I think were pretty valid. Over the last couple of seasons, Jordan Binnington, at least based on all of the metrics, has been a below-league average goalie. He needs to be better. Now, there's context that's important around those numbers. As we watch on a night-to-night basis, we know, hey, this defense is no good. There's backdoor tap-ins that are happening left and right. That's not all on Jordan Binnington, but some of it has been. I do think he needs to up his game. So as you're going into the season, you're thinking about this as a Blues fan that is relatively optimistic, I would say, for this team. What do you need to see from Benner this year?
Well, first, the point that Greg made is absolutely true in terms of you need to see the temper down. Like, you don't need to see the outburst that Jordan Binnington has had, because a lot of people read, even though some people in St. Louis, me included, look at it differently, a lot of people on the outside read this as, oh, he's just not a good goaltender, and so he's overcompensating. I think that's a little bit of a joke, but that's the one area that he does have to focus on, and Armstrong talked about that last year. But, BK, I pulled up this heat map, and for people that don't know, go to Natural Stat Trick in the game log, and you can pull up this heat map and look at it. But if you look at the Dallas Stars shot attempts, where is it basically bare?
Right in front of the net.
Right in front of the net. And if Jordan Binnington, what he needs to do this season is partially on the defense to make sure that this is the type of game they provide to him. But if you're Binnington, you can't allow those easy goals. Because if you give up those goals that go glove side like he did a couple of years ago where it felt like he was always getting beat off of the rush, if you give up those goals and you're giving up the backdoor tap-ins if the defense lets up every once in a while, then yeah, you're right on par with what everybody is expecting out of Jordan Binnington. But what I've seen, not just in this game against Dallas, but in the 3 games that he's played preseason-wise, when the defense has been playing well in front of him in terms of keeping it to the outside, he's making those easier saves. He's making those saves in terms of shot from the far side, or if you're getting off of the rush, the 2-on-1s. If he does that, then we're talking about a guy who could have a top 15 save percentage in the National Hockey League, but a lot of that relies on how they play in front of him.
Apparently somebody on the text line said that I was roasted yesterday by Jamie on the fast lane about Benner. I think it's totally reasonable to have differing opinions on Jordan Binnington. I would say this. I don't think anything that I said yesterday was overly controversial. He's been a below-league average goalie the last, really, 3 seasons. I think you could say probably 2.5. The thing that I've always said about Binnington is that I don't worry about him when you get to the playoffs. When Benner gets to the postseason, that dude steps up his game in a way that is meaningful. Like, he is the Jock Peterson of the NHL, where Jock Peterson could put together a completely below-average regular season. Carlos Correa, same thing, right? You get to the postseason, I know those dudes are showing up. I don't worry about it. Whatever they did during the regular season, just wash that away. The same thing is true of Benner. The question to me is, like, can you get away with a guy that has played the way that Benner has the last couple of seasons in net during the regular season? I think the answer is no. I think he needs to be better. I think he specifically has to take his game back to where it was a couple of years ago. Man, how many times have we talked about it where it's like for a 10 to 15 game stretch, Jamie talks about this a lot on the fast lane. He just doesn't look confident in the crease. He is going way too left to right.
Way too active.
When he is at his best, it is calm in net. And it feels like he can almost see where the shot is going before the shot is taken. And if he can get back to being that guy for the Blues this season, he's your best penalty killer. The penalty kill was atrocious last year. And he is a guy that can make those big-time saves when you need them. The problem with Binner last year is there were times when it felt like there was a momentum-saving play that could have been made by him, and he couldn't make it. 2 years ago, you had a guy in net with Husso that was able to make those plays. Last year, you didn't have the fail-safe. So if he's back to doing that again in 23, and I'm definitely not counting him out, I think it completely changes the way that this team's going to go.
The way I view this is last year I thought Binnington was better than advertised, and we've talked a lot about that. 2 years ago was the big red alarms. That was the year that Binnington was getting beat quickly. Like, it was going top shelf on him every time. It felt like every team knew what they were doing. That's when Husso took over. But if you look at the 2 years prior to that, the year after he won the Cup when he was an All-Star, and then that shortened season, I mean, he was the guy that was advertised, a .910 save percentage and a .265 goals against average. He was that same player 2 straight years, and a lot of the reason was because look at the team that was in front of him. It was a team that was defensively sound, and when they were, he was making those clean saves. You weren't asking him to make the desperation saves, and that's the part that I just disagree wholeheartedly with Greg Wyshynski, where he jokes and says, people just say, watch the games. I'm watching the games. Is he not making the saves? Yeah, but no goalies are going to make those saves. So that's
some
why,
of them.
Maybe, but I mean, like, we're talking Vasilevsky. And I mean, last season, it felt like none because we're talking about the dude facing one way and there's a player standing on the backside of it. That remains to be seen. Binnington has to be better. When the shots are coming towards him, you've got to make those saves. You've got to, Panger used to talk about it all the time. You've got to make those momentum-shifting saves.
100%. When
your team breaks down in the offensive zone and the odd man rush comes the other way, you can't give up that breakaway or that 2-on-1. You've got to make that save so your team knows that you're there for them.
For me, the big thing is the last 2 years he's been second on his own team in save percentage. Like, it's the same defensive structure in front of both of these guys, man. And Binnington has been the second best goalie among the two that are getting regular reps. So I understand that you're right, Alex. I'm totally with you. And especially last year. Last year was just a terrible season.
Bad
crap season for everybody, right? But Thomas Greiss had a slightly better save percentage than Jordan Binnington did. Thomas Greiss is nobody's definition of a starting caliber goalie. And last year, both of them had about an .895 save percentage.
And if you remember that season for Thomas Greiss, the games that he played well in, I mean, the dude was just scrambling in net. Like, we were talking flinging his pads from left to right to make those desperation
saves. Nothing about it was sustainable.
No.
Like, he's not a very good. He's a below league average goalie.
He was a backup goaltender, and that's what you brought him in for.
Unfortunately for the Blues last year, that was the caliber of play that you also got out of Jordan Binnington. Yeah. That doesn't mean it will continue to be that way. Some guys just have down years, man. Other guys on this team had down years last year as well. I think Parayko had a little bit of a down year last year. I think Ryan O'Reilly had a little bit of a down year last year. I don't think all of those guys are going to go into 2023 and be the exact same players all over again. And I think Binnington is a guy that you should and hopefully will be able to have a little bit of confidence in by the end of the season.
Absolutely, and I think they're intertwined. Like, if your defense struggles once again, if the scheme that they're working with sucks, then Binnington's going to. His numbers aren't going to back it up. One thing that Joe said last night on postgame that I do find really interesting in terms of this season is he said that Binner is a lot more communicative.
Yeah.
Is that a word?
Yeah.
He's communicating more with his teammates on the ice. Like, Joe said he pulled him aside and was talking with him, and you could hear it in the broadcast where you'd hear him saying, like, hey, Colton, like, guys coming on the left side, move it up quick. Or he's telling guys where to be, where I don't think he did that the last couple of seasons. Now, I could be completely wrong. I haven't actually sat down and asked him that. But the best goaltenders in the league, they either know their defensemen and where they're going to go, or they're yelling at their players to say, like, hey, get over here, this guy's moving. And if Binner's at that point now where he's basically saying, like, I'm taking command of the ice, then that's a difference maker also.
They're almost like a second coach on the ice.
Absolutely.
Because they see everything in front of them.
Third defenseman,
Think about
too.
Berkey.
Yeah. 100%. Berkey's the guy that's communicating constantly for City SC. Why? Because he can truly see everything. And that's not necessarily the case for a defenseman or a forward. So if he is communicating with him, and again, you're right, we haven't had a chance to talk to him, but if that is something that he is doing more of, that is going to help the Blues this year. Now, is it going to help him significantly enough to where his numbers jump up in incredible amounts? Probably not. But it is something that is slightly going to help him to bring his numbers back up to the level that the Blues need him to be at.
If the Blues defense is average, I need Jordan Binnington to put up above average numbers. That's really what it comes down to.
If the defense is average in front of him, then Binnington should be one of the best players on the team this season.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, it's time for our football pick'em. It is a fresh start for all of us. I was punished in the first month of the regular season for the NFL. Hopefully that will not be the case in round 2 of this football pick'em challenge. We'll give you our picks of the week coming up next here on 101 ESPN. right, it's time for our football pick'em. If you're new to this, the way that it works, we get 3 picks going into the weekend. It has to be a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday game. It has to be completed by the time that we get on to the show on Monday morning. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We did this for the first month of the NFL and college football season. Turned out not so well for your boy BK.
What?
Almost turned out really poorly for our guy T-Bone.
Yeah,
Laid an egg in the final
T-Bone
week.
felt good until that. Oh boy, those Jets covered.
So, the way that this works, we will get a confidence pool, ranking from 1 to 3, 3 being the highest, of course, and at the end of the weekend, you've got a potential to get 6 points. At the end of the month, whoever has the fewest points committed, that is the person that will end up being punished. My understanding is that this punishment is going to be eating baby food
Blind
during
testing
a show.
baby food.
So that is going to be a whole heck of a lot of fun. I think what we should do there, Alex, is at the end of every segment, because I've done something at the end of every segment as well.
12 flavors?
Yeah, at the end of every segment, you got to blind test the
I
next
realize
baby
you're going to
food.
be doing this.
Well,
Yeah,
and this
of course.
isn't a theme because not after every segment, I'm not getting a prostate exam if I lose that.
No, that
punishment.
one is just one.
Okay, I was going to say, I'm not getting 12 prostate exams on one show. Let's not start that theme.
All
I
right.
like that one. One flavor of baby food each segment.
Yeah, I think that's the way that we do it.
Oh,
And
God.
that's the way that we get punished at the end of this
Have
round.
you ever tasted it? Because I know T-Bone eats it for
I've
dinner.
not. I have not. It's an unnecessary.
No, don't
Come
put
on.
your,
Come
we're not fist bumping.
Yeah, we are.
Alex,
Yeah, buddy.
you won last month. You were number one in the Pick'em pool. So I will allow you the opportunity to choose. Would you like to go first or third in our Pick'em challenge this week?
I'm going to go third.
Okay. T-Bone, you will go first.
All right, well, my number one pick, my least confident pick going into this week, I've got the Colts at +2.5 against the Titans. I agree with Alex. I don't understand how they are at home and they are not favored in this one. In Tennessee, I don't think it's a better team. I don't think they've got the better quarterback. They can run the ball better with Derrick Henry, but that's truly the only thing that they're better at in this one. I don't see how they're going to end up covering a 2.5-point spread. I've got the Colts winning this one outright. I like the Colts +2.5 hosting the Tennessee Titans.
Do you want repeats?
Go for it.
Because that's my number 2 play. That's my second confident pick was the Colts +2.5. I had it at 3, but I flipped it because I also just don't know. And then, of course, you guys got into my head of, was it an underdog under 3 points at home? And so you guys got into my head a little bit there.
So both of you have the Colts +2.5. That is not a selection that I decided to make. I do like the pick. One of the reasons why I decided against it is because the Titans just make me nervous, dude. Every time that I see them on the other side, especially in a game against a rookie quarterback with Mike Vrabel on the sideline, that guy just puts together nightmare game plans that can make things very difficult, especially for a young quarterback. So that's my one reservation. I do like the pick. If I was going to pick one side in that one, I'm pretty surprised that the Colts are a 2.5-point underdog at home. It feels strange.
Especially for how Richardson played last week. Like, that's the part that I just don't get.
Yeah, I don't understand.
And with
that
Taylor
one at
coming
all.
back.
All right.
Crap.
My 1-point game going into the weekend is going to be a game that I have a lot of confidence in.
Then we should put it
Then
at
you should
3.
put that 3. This is why you lose, man.
I'm confident in all of my picks.
Okay. No points for BK.
Goose egg.
This is a perfect parlay, ladies and gentlemen. Jump on this right
I'll be
now.
on this week. I'm fading
I'm
this guy.
sending it to you.
Anybody understand why the Dolphins are only an 11.5-point favorite?
Oh, boy.
There it is. There it is. Don't
Anybody
you know
get
the rule? Don't go over 10 with your spreads, man.
Well, I'm not following that rule.
Have you seen the Giants play football this year?
Oh, God, this is going to blow up in your
Smells
face.
like a bounce back.
They are horrendous.
You should make this your 3 pick.
I think you can make a case that the Giants are, in fact, the worst team in the NFL right now, based on the way that they've played so far this year.
It's in play.
The Dolphins, I think you can make a case, are top 3 team in the NFL this year. They're an 11.5-point favorite. It's at home. I think it's absurd that it's that low. It should be a 13-plus point line at a minimum. Give me the Dolphins. There's no way this one loses.
All right, cool. Start my parlay off there. All right, my number 1 play, because I had to repeat with T-Bone. Oh, wait, no, we're going back to T-Bone because I repeated.
Go ahead.
Okay.
So go on to your one.
Number 1 play for me is the game that you guys said you'd go the other way. I'm taking Buffalo -5.5. Von Miller returning is going to be a boost for them, and I understand that Josh Allen could Josh Allen all over the field, but he seems to be in rhythm right now, and I'm not really sure Jacksonville's going to be able to find a way to stop what he and Stephon Diggs did in that last game. So I'm sticking with my gut on this one. The one play that I was curious about, I was going to think about doing Houston again, but I'm going to stick with the favorite, -5.5 for Buffalo.
See, if that was at Buffalo, I would probably take the same play.
Yeah.
But because they've got to travel to London, you got that time zone change and all that just feels like a mess coming
I get
for
it.
the Bills. My number 2 pick, I'm kind of going to go off the beaten path. I'm going going to stay away from the top 25 games. I'm going to stay away from the NFL. I'm going to the Big 12, and I'm going UCF -2 at Kansas. Daniels looks like he's going to be out. He's dealing with a back injury, and only 2 points on the road at Kansas. Kansas isn't the same team without him, so I like UCF -2 points in that
Go
one.
ahead, BK. Tell them what you think.
I love that pick.
All right,
I
T-Bone.
gave serious consideration to going with that pick going into this weekend.
T-Bone, that's 2 losses for you.
I think it's absolutely the right call on that one. So
1 loss for me, too. Crap.
I'm really, really impressed.
Did you
by
change
what
your
you were able
opinion
to
on
do
the
there.
Colts play that you said you liked so much? Will you say that you like the other side?
No, I will not do that. All right, my next pick, 2-point pick for this week. Alex, you actually mentioned it. I love the Texans plus the 2.
Yep.
I just don't understand. Like, in what world does this make sense? The Falcons have been atrocious. Can I get the -1.5? That's the best odds that I can find anywhere. Am I stuck with the 2?
I had it at 1.5.
I have it at
that's what
1.5
FanDuel
too.
was this afternoon.
Okay, so I've got it at 1.5. You can get that on a couple
plus
of
1.5,
different.
right?
MGM's giving it at 1.5 right now. Plus 1.5.
For the underdog.
They're on the road. They're at Atlanta. Dude, Atlanta is just, like, this is going to be such a slogfest. It does make me a little nervous from that regard. Like, they could run for 200 yards, and it shouldn't shock anybody. You get into the fourth quarter, it's like a 13-12 type of a game.
Man, I trust that defense for Houston taking on the run.
I'm kind of with you, and I think they're going to force Desmond Ridder into some really weird decision-making choices. So I'm going to take the Texans plus the 2 point, or plus the 2. That's what we decided.
Yeah, no, it's 1.5.
Plus 1.5.
Plus 1.5.
On the road at Atlanta.
Now that I said the Buffalo pick, I'm kind of regretting it because you're right. I mean, like, Houston's going to be in Desmond Ridder's face, and I don't know how he's going to handle it, but that was the one that stayed outside because my most confident pick. Can somebody explain to me why Baltimore is only a 4.5-point spread against Pittsburgh? Like, Pittsburgh has not looked good, and I don't understand how people think Kenny Pickett is going to be good against.
We were really drawn to the same picks this week, buddy.
Crap. But did you go the opposite of me, or did you pick the same one?
I like the Ravens.
Son of a nutcracker.
There's a couple of games this week that just don't make sense.
I just don't understand how Pittsburgh is going to be able to stay within 4.5 points. Like, I get their defense is great, but Lamar Jackson actually seems to have figured out this offense, and you just put up the points that you did against a better defense with Cleveland. So that's my number 3 play.
I like that. It is odd, though, that most of the money is coming in on the Pittsburgh side. And Tomlin does seem to get his team fired up for that rivalry game. So maybe that's not driving it. They're based on numbers. But I can see where people go that way. My number 3 pick, I'm going to stick.
Hold on. Before you pick
he's
it.
repeating.
Yeah, I'm going with that. That is my number 3 pick. I like the Ravens minus the 4.5. It doesn't make any sense, dude. Kenny Pickett has been arguably the worst quarterback in the NFL this year, not named Desmond Ridder. And his offensive line is giving him no time. His wide receivers, they've got opportunities there for him, and he's just not getting it to them. They have no running game to speak of whatsoever. The Ravens are just the flat-out better football team, and I'm only getting them minus 4.5. I love it. I absolutely love this pick. Give me the Ravens minus the 4.5 going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. T-Bone.
Another one that I considered, and the line just doesn't make sense. How is Washington State a 3-point underdog at UCLA? That one makes no sense on the college football side. But my number 1 pick, this team's been playing really well since they got their head coach back from suspension. I love Michigan at home, minus 18.5, or excuse me, on the road at Minnesota, minus 18.5. I know it's a big spread, but ever since Harbaugh came back, they beat the tar out of Nebraska last week 45-7. They only gave up 7 against Rutgers.
Who they play?
Their defense, Michigan has not allowed more than 7 points this year.
Who are they playing?
They are at the Minnesota Gophers. So I like
that one.
I like Michigan on the road minus the 18.5. I know it's a big spread, but they are playing great
That's a
football
spread
right
I could
now.
get behind. BK acting like 11.5 is still too little.
I think it is. I think that line could be 35, and I would consider it.
Somebody texted in when we were talking about the punishment. They said, rather than 1 bite after each segment, what if you had to finish the jar by the end of the show?
That's a lot of food.
No.
Yeah.
You know how expensive those baby foods are, right?
Like $2 a piece, right?
I think they're like 3 or 4.
Yeah, we'll be fine. Cool. We'll split it together.
Cool. So excited.
I have one other addition that I would like to throw into the mix.
You're going a 4-point play? You really want to lose?
No, for the people, I want to give this out. You can take it or you can fade it.
I'd fade it.
Fade it.
I love Kentucky plus 14.5 against Georgia this weekend. Absolutely love it. I don't have the balls to be able to pick it and like put it as part of our punishment status. But I think for me, at least on the college football side of things, it is my number 1 pick going into the week. Going into the weekend. Going into the week, my favorite play was Mizzou plus 6.5. That has been bet all the way down to like 4 in most places now. I wouldn't touch it there. If you want to bet Mizzou money line, I think that's really where the value is. But 14.5 feels really high to me. Georgia's run defense has not been the same this year. Kentucky is more than happy to run the football all day long in that game. Kentucky is a really good defense. That's a game that I think could end up being like 20-10, and you were able to cover the spread.
There were
that low scoring.
3 games this weekend that we were talking about before the show that I said, I like this team, but it's so close on that spread that it's tough to pick. I think Arizona's going to test USC this weekend. That's a 21-point spread. I don't have the guts to pick it in the pick 'em, but it's something to keep an eye on. I'm with you on the Georgia game because, I lean towards Georgia winning that game, but will they cover? I just don't have a good sense on. And then the other one that's kind of big is the Ohio State-Maryland. I don't think Ohio State's a top 4 team in college football, but Maryland, who's 5-0, has been playing really well. They've got Tua's brother running the QB at their school. I don't think Maryland pulls off the upset, but I could see where they cover. There's a couple of big spreads that I look at that I could see these big spreads being covered by the team that's the underdog.
I like Texas A&M too. 2.5-point underdog right now at home against Alabama going into the weekend. I would take them on the money line. If you're going to bet them there, just go ahead and take them on the money line, especially if you think it's going to be a close game. But that would be one other.
Someone put together the BK and Ferrario spread for the weekend, and now I'm tweeting this out so people can follow along. And not only can they follow the 3 of us, but I'm putting all 9 plays up there to see how good or how bad we are as a group.
T-Bone this weekend. His picks going into the weekend. Colts plus 2.5. That's his 1-point play. UCF -2. I really like that pick, man. That's a good one.
Sorry,
the college football slate. -2. Michigan -18.5. That's his 3-point play. For me, I've got a big spread as my 1-point line. It is the Dolphins -11.5. I've got the Texans as a 1.5-point underdog, and I've got the Ravens as a 4.5-point favorite. Alex also has the Ravens as his most confident pick. He's got the Colts, much like T-Bone does, at 2.5 underdog, and he's getting up early to watch the Buffalo Bills as they travel to London to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Those are our picks of the week. You guys can fade them. You can go along with us. Whatever you want to do, that is available to you on Monday. We will give you our results in the first week of this month's Pick'em Challenge. Coming up next, how would you rank the potential World Series matchups that currently exist? We'll give you our rankings coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Grant Francis here with a SportsCenter update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. A nice win for the Blues last night in Dallas, a 4-0 shutout victory over the Stars. Jordan Binnington, a 25-save performance in the shutout. Robert Thomas had 2 goals. Jake Neighbors had a goal, and Justin Falk had one as well. Blues will continue preseason action tomorrow, the last preseason game of the year. Blues and Blackhawks here at Enterprise Center. We'll have pregame coverage starting for you at 6 o'clock here on your home for the Blues 101 ESPN. And before that, we'll have some college football for you. Oklahoma and Texas. That pregame will start at 11 o'clock. I'm Grant Francis. The SportsCenter update's been brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alex and T-Bone on BK. If you guys want to check us out on YouTube, you can do exactly that. At 101 ESPN STL is where you go to find us on the YouTube page. You guys can always check us out as well after the show is concluded at 101ESPN.com. That's where you find the podcast. Also, the free 101 ESPN app. It is all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Alex, we're going into the weekend. We've got the divisional series in both the National League and the American League side of things. We'll get Game 1 on the National League, Game 1 and 2 on the American League. We'll have an off day for the NL on Sunday. I was curious because MLB.com put together their list of the most intriguing potential World Series matchups earlier today. Alex, at number 1 for them, they had the Orioles versus the Braves. I do not think that would be the most intriguing World Series matchup. They continued. Dodgers versus the Astros, Phillies versus the Orioles, Braves versus the Rangers,
Stop right there.
Astros versus the Diamondbacks, and they continue from there. Alex, if you were to put together your own personal list of the best possible World Series matchups, what would it look like for you?
It would be the Braves versus the Rangers. That would be best on best in the World Series. And you could argue the Astros in that spot. I just think that the Rangers are a more intriguing team than the Astros right now. But it would include the Braves or the Phillies. I'd be fine with either of those teams, but I want it to be the Rangers.
I agree. I think it's got to be the Braves that got to come out of the National League for the most interesting. I would actually say it is the Houston Astros. The Braves have this feel of kind of like what the Cubs had in, 2015, where it was, whoa, look at that core. But unlike the Cubs, this core's locked up. And you can go, I could see how this team is just the dominant force in the National League for years to come. They feel like they're at the very beginning of a potential dynasty window. And then you get the boogeyman of Major League Baseball, the Houston Astros, that's back in the World Series, who has their flaws of the cheating scandal that still surrounds them. But credit to them. I mean, they've been in the World Series the last 2 years. They were in the ALCS 3 years ago, and they lost the World Series 4 years ago. Like, they have been the model of consistency in the American League. And if they can get back to the World Series for a 3rd straight year, and they're taking on the Atlanta Braves, the team that's supposed to be doing that kind of role in the National League, I think that's the best World Series matchup for Major League Baseball.
5 out of 7 World Series would be quite the run for the Astros. And one of the years that they didn't make it was 2020. I mean, you can make an argument, like, if you don't count that as a real season, and take it or leave it.
The Dodgers still haven't won a World Series.
Basically, 5 of the last 6 seasons, they would have potentially made it to the World Series. That's one of the best runs we've ever seen in the history of baseball, is what we would potentially be witnessing if the Astros are able to do it again. I think that's, to me, Alex, I actually kind of agree with you. I agree with both of you, honestly. Phillies and Braves are the best teams to come out of the National League, and Rangers and Astros are the 2 best teams to come out of the American League. And any combination of those 4 will make for a nationally relevant World Series matchup. Here's the question, though. What if you eliminated those 4 teams? What if I told you just right off the top, none of those 4 are able to make it to the World Series?
I'd say watch football.
I think hockey's going on right now.
I'd watch the Blues, yeah.
What is the next best option for you
I mean,
among the other teams that remain in the postseason?
If those teams are out, I'd be looking at teams that haven't won the World Series yet or haven't won in a really long time.
Are the Orioles? Let me ask this a different
The
way.
Orioles are not entertaining to
The
me.
Orioles won 101 games. They have some of the best young talent in the sport. They're a team that is on the rise and could potentially be relevant. I mean, they won the American League East this year, which was considered to be coming into the season one of, if not the best divisions in baseball. And they ran away with the division. They might be able to be at the top of that division for like the next 3 to 5 years. Are they compelling to you?
No.
Do you find that team compelling?
No, I would much rather the Minnesota Twins be in the postseason than the Baltimore Orioles.
Interesting.
They're not really compelling to me. And I don't know why. It's because they have some really fun players like Adley Rutschman has been really fun to watch. Gunnar Henderson has been really fun to watch. I do like some of their pitchers, Grayson Rodriguez, but they just don't seem to get that draw for me like the Minnesota Twins would in the American League. And frankly, both of those, I'm not going to be very happy about it because on the other side, you're going to have, the Diamondbacks versus the Dodgers. And
I couldn't care less about the Dodgers.
Yeah, I would say that.
Do not give me the Dodgers in the World Series.
Dodgers, I just assume they're going to get the floor swept with them because other than Betts and Freeman, they've got nothing. And
Diamondbacks are really interesting to me.
See, I don't.
I really like the
care.
Diamondbacks team.
I do too. I think they're fun because they cause havoc on the bases. They've got an awesome 1-2 punch that, let's just be honest, we'd love to have here in St. Louis and Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen.
They had one.
And their bullpen was lights out against the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, it doesn't really have a massive name in it. Like Seawald's their biggest name in their bullpen, and I can't really think of anybody else in there. I think Baltimore would be exciting. And I kind of fall in the category of Alex to where, like, I look at that team and it feels like Tampa Bay Rays when they go into the playoffs, where I know they're good, but I don't really know a lot about them. And that's what I feel like about Baltimore. Like, I know Gunnar Henderson's good, and I know they've got pieces. Those pieces really become kind of the center of attention if they get to the World Series, and I think they would then become like a team that not only would you look at this year going, hey, you know what, that team was actually exciting, but then you keep an eye on them for the years that they are together in Baltimore before their owner blows it all.
Yeah, I was going to say, it might actually be my hatred towards the owner and his mindset. That might be part of the reason why I don't want to see them succeed, which sucks for the players. But, like, when you've got an owner that's basically like, oh, well, screw you fans. We'll enjoy it while it's here because I'm not paying any of these guys. That sucks.
What about the Twins?
Yeah, I don't care.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I
don't
like
find them interesting.
I think they're the third more interesting team in that division, though.
I find them to be a really fun story.
I like their pitching.
They built it right. Like, they did everything that you could want a small market team to do. They went out and were aggressive in the trade market. They bring in Pablo Lopez and Sonny Gray to be at the front end of their rotation. They've developed young pitching from within. That bullpen is dynamite right now. I really like Joe Ryan. I think he's a really good pitcher. I talked about him whenever the Cardinals faced off against them and said, hey, if for whatever reason this guy became available, he's somebody the Cardinals should absolutely try to target. You look at their lineup, man, they've developed a bunch of these core pieces, and then I give them so much credit. I know it was a horrific season for Carlos Correa. I think they deserve a ton of credit for saying, you know what? Let's do it. Let's keep this guy around. First, they signed him the first time around where he had that really unique contract, and then they were able to keep him. A guy that was considered to be like a top 10 player in the sport. Yeah, he's got some injury issues. They said, bleep that. We're a small market team. We've got the potential to have one of the best players in the sport. Go sign him. After the other big market teams failed or were unwilling to do so, I find them to be a really interesting team as well. I know nationally they will not rate. Like, the worst thing for Rob Manfred, he'll want nothing to do with him being in the World Series, and I get it. But for me personally, I love the way that they've built this roster, and honestly, I love the way that their stadium looks on television. That was an awesome environment in the wild card round, so I'd like to see a little bit more of that if possible.
And I'll give them this, that fan base is electric, like you just talked about, for what the ballpark was, so that's part of the reason why I'd like to see that team have some success.
Can I tell you what I think the best case scenario is for baseball, just in like the way we view the game and how baseball GM should look at it? Because we always talk about lessons learned.
Can I guess?
Rangers, Astros, Phillies, Diamondbacks.
I think Texas versus Philly.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing for baseball. Because what's the lesson to be learned from those teams?
Go all in.
It's to go for it. And that's what Texas did. And now I know it took 2 years for Texas.
If Philly does it again this year, at some point, we've got to look at the data that is in front of us. The numbers nerds have to admit, maybe this isn't quite as random as we are trying to make it into being. Like, maybe there's something to the idea of when you sign Bryce Harper and Trey Turner and Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos and have a top 2 in your rotation of Aaron Nola and Wheeler.
And trade for JT Realmuto.
maybe there's something to that. Maybe that gives us a better opportunity to win in the
You
playoffs.
legit have a star in every position on the offense on top of having 2 studs, and you spent money in your bullpen. Like, you go all in.
Think about how many teams would crumble if they lost their equivalent of Rhys Hoskins going into the year. Like, just their lineup would crumble. The Phillies lost him going into the season. Ho-hum, win 90 games, have one of the best one of the best offenses in the sport.
Yeah.
Like that is what I give. I totally agree with you, T-Bone. Best thing for baseball, honestly, best thing for fans.
Yeah.
Is to see those 2 teams that really went for it end up in the World Series.
And I think this is why we had the conversations about the best thing for baseball coming into the year was San Diego being the team that did well, because it was a small market team spending more money than they probably have, as we're learning now, and they go to a deep playoff run, and they flop. But look at Texas. And I understand Texas is in a big market, Philadelphia, big market. But some of these big market teams aren't aggressive. Look at Boston. Yeah. Boston's playing the numbers game, and they suck. And they had to fire their GM because of it. They had to fire their Pobo. So I think it's the best thing for baseball to see these teams. And I get it. Like the numbers nerds would tell you, well, look at what the Phillies are going to be in 5 years. Hey, man, they get a banner that flies forever. Exactly. You think I care about the Rams not having a first-round pick for the last, 3 years? No, they've got a Super Bowl ring to talk about.
If I hear one more big-time baseball executive come out the way that we saw. And by the way, did you see what Jerry Dipoto had to do today?
What did he say on the show?
Oh, he backtracked?
He came out and apologized.
Because he said that. Which one did he apologize for? Saying 54% or saying fans should be thankful?
I'm not sure what it was specifically referencing, but
Correct,
he came out earlier today and said, I did a poor job in trying to convey what I thought, and I feel really badly about it. He said he was, quote, generally embarrassed by the comments that came out publicly, and that he, quote, completely whiffed in trying to paint a big picture baseline. So I think a lot of it was the 54%. What he's really upset about is that he told the truth.
Yeah, all the other general managers called and be like, Jerry, what are you doing? Now you told everybody we only need 85 wins.
But that mindset that baseball executives have of, hey, if we just have this sustained ability to win 90 games and get into the postseason every single year.
That's all we need.
It's nonsense. It is. There is some truth that there's value in sustainability. Don't get me wrong. But when you've got a team that you feel like has an opportunity to win, go try to win. That is the thing that is missing from a lot of these teams. It's the thing that's been missing from the Cardinals. It's the thing that's been missing from the Mariners, honestly. Like, if you have a team that you really believe in them to the nth degree and try to put all of your force behind them. The Braves have done that. The Phillies have done that. The Rangers did that this year. Teams that really go in. The Houston Astros, think about the deadline moves that they've made in recent seasons that have propelled them in to the World Series. Like, come on, man. There is something to what these teams are trying to accomplish. All right, coming up in about 10 minutes or so, speaking of teams that are potentially on the precipice of something special, the Missouri Tigers have a huge game this weekend.
Here we go again.
I'm wearing my MIZZOU shirt today for the show.
I'm not.
I'm looking forward to the game tomorrow.
Nothing.
What would it mean for our Missouri Tigers to get a win tomorrow against LSU? We'll give you some of the numbers behind that coming up in 10 minutes. The junk drawer is next. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Hey, I've got a way for you to win $1 million, Alex.
What?
Yep.
I'm in.
Oh, wait, I don't do that anymore. That was a college thing.
The doorbell company called Ring
Oh, I have one. Oh, my God, this is going to be great for me.
is holding a competition. T-Bone, I think you're disqualified because you live in an apartment and probably don't have a Ring doorbell. However,
Do you have a
Alex
doorbell?
can be a part of it.
No.
It's asking for people to capture evidence of extraterrestrial life.
Oh, my God. Man,
If you can prove it with your Ring doorbell that you have seen an alien, you, sir, are getting $1 million.
in paper mache. I'm going to paper mache a UFO and put it at the top of my Ring doorbell. Maybe
what's
one
great?
of those inflatable aliens.
That could win you money as well. Skeptics can also win in this contest with the Ring doorbell.
Oh, I'm not a skeptic.
They
This
are
is easier.
offering a $500 Amazon gift card to the most creative fake that they have that is sent in to Ring doorbell.
T-Bone, let me propose something to you. I paper mache you into an alien costume,
Who
and
on the
I'll give you
station looks-
10%.
I'm not going to ask this
Who
question.
looks like an alien? I mean, I'll ask it. It's a weird question, but
Who would make the best alien at the station is a better way to frame this, probably.
it's going to sound awful.
Maybe I won't answer the question.
Thinking large head.
A Rockio.
Thank you.
The answer is Rock.
Thank you. Look, Rockio's got 2 jobs in front of him if he wants them. 1, dress up like an alien and come be at my house. 2, dress up like Wreck-It Ralph for my daughter's birthday.
Or not Napoleon Dynamite. Jimmy Neutron. Jimmy Neutron's another option.
He's going to
for
have to
him.
get more hair.
Well, he
to
just
do that.
puts his hair straight up.
Yeah.
His hair's thick enough,
I guess
man,
that's
to make
true.
it happen.
It's
We just gotta-
curly.
we got to make sure the gel and the hairspray is ready to go for it. But I think he's got it.
Do yourself a favor, listeners. Next time that the opening driver, go check it out on our YouTube page. And just take a gander at old Rock's face, and then go look at a picture of Wreck-It Ralph and tell me it's not the same person.
Even Rockio understands.
Oh,
it.
he
I
laughed
think
at me
he's
because he
going
was
along
very
with
upset.
it.
So here's my scenario, T-Bone. You are the alien. BK is the person that you're abducting. And we'll dress it all up in my front lawn. I'll get like this paper mache UFO, like it landed, and we'll do it that way. I think we could make both of you into aliens.
I'm not helping you.
Dude, I'll give you $5 off of my Amazon gift
No,
card.
I'm not helping you. I don't want to be
You know
involved.
I'm really great to split money with, Alex.
Yeah,
when
it's
I
true.
win money, I share it with you. So the same thing should be true if I help you out with this.
He backs his words every time he says, hey, man, if we win this underdog thing, you in 50-50. Great, man. How much did you win? $2,500. That's awesome. Oh, yeah, you don't get any
It's
of that.
$5,000. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Hey, if you guys want to, you can check us out on YouTube, where we are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. Our studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team.
Can I read this text, sir? From the 314. Such a shame that this hack show would push this nonsense. You're making real UFO disclosure hard.
Who said that these aren't real?
Yeah. Who said that Tanner dressing up like an alien isn't real? How do you know that basically what this is it's like a sacrifice where T-Bone dresses up like an alien and the real UFOs see it and they're like, one of our kind, let's go get him. It's like Cartman from South Park. And then you get the probe, and then next thing you know, satellites are coming out every time you go to the restroom.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So you, sir, are the hack.
It's really hard to argue with your logic.
Yeah, you, sir, are the hack. We're the believers.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, what would it mean for Mizzou to win tomorrow? It means a lot. We'll talk about it here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK. So your home has made you equity rich, but only on paper. You're planning to use that cash to retire, travel, maybe just want to downsize into a place that's paid off. And that's all great, but the longer that you wait, the greater chance that those high interest rates could chip away at your home's current value. And while that home's value is still high, the time to act is right now. And you can do so with Truehold, where they will buy your home right now, and you can stay in your home for as long as you'd like as a renter. Truehold will buy your home for its best current value, and you get to bank that cash and do whatever you'd like with it, while Truehold takes care of your property taxes, insurance, and all of your upkeep as well. So don't miss out on this opportunity to cash in on your equity and stay in your home for as long as you'd like by visiting Truehold.com, where you'll discover how much they'll buy your home for today based on its best current value. To do so, call 1-855-300-9993 or visit Truehold.com for the smarter and faster way to cash out on your home's full value without having to move. That's Truehold.com. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So Missouri's got a huge game tomorrow at Ferro Field. A game that, man, I hope that it is an incredible atmosphere. The SEC screwed you. I understand it, Mizzou fans. You have every right to be upset. It's an 11 a.m. kickoff, but get out there, be loud, get yourself some drinks beforehand, go over to CJ's, go over to Harpo's.
Party hard tonight.
And then walk over, stumble over, whatever you got to do to get yourself to Ferro Field. Do some early tailgating. We'll be fine.
Hooters.
We'll be fine, Mizzou fans. That's a drive.
Go to
I
Hooters.
recommend walking.
Let's go to Hooters.
To Ferro Field. Going up against number 23 LSU. Alex, LSU has an incredible offense. One of the best quarterbacks in the country is Jaden Daniels. I don't think it's been fair to him that his defense has been as awful as they have been. He deserves a better fate. He's up there in the Heisman candidacy rankings so far this year. This would be the kind of win that Mizzou typically doesn't get. Over the last, 15 years. These are Missouri's wins against top 25 ranked teams. Or this is since 2014, excuse me. Wins against top 25 teams. This year against K-State, last year against South Carolina, 2020 against LSU, 2018 against Florida, and 2014 against South Carolina. End of list. In the last decade, you've won 5 games against top 25 ranked opponents. The only times since 2000 that Missouri has won multiple games in the same season against the top 25 opponent.
Hit me with it.
2013, you won the SEC East.
Great year.
2011, pretty good season. In 2007, you ended up going to the Big 12 championship game that year as well. There's 3 times in the last 20 years that they've been able to accomplish this. If you win tomorrow against LSU, this will be number 4. It will mean this is up there with the best seasons that Missouri football has had in the last 20 years. In other words, Tanner's conscious life. Alex, how significant in your mind would this be for Eli Drinkwitz to be able to get the win tomorrow against LSU?
I mean, it's the highlight of his career thus far as a college football coach. And I understand what he did with Appalachian State that got him the job with Mizzou, but this is the highlight of your career. And frankly, if you're Eli Drinkwitz, this is the jumping off point of what it could be for the rest of your career. Because if you win this game, as I've said before, you can't spell believe without Eli. And that is when what?
I mean, it's good. Go ahead. Keep going.
You can't.
It's well played.
I before E, though, except after C. Remember that one.
I wish it wasn't true.
That is where Mizzou fans look at a season and they change their tone, because I was this player or this person to where every year since Eli Drinkwitz has been here, it's been, okay, but you're not making progress. You're doing the same thing, which is fine.
He was a 500 coach every single season.
I'm sick of 6-6. I'm sick of you getting to 5 or 6 wins and being comfortable with that. When are you going to prove that you're an 8-win coach with this team? You've proven that you can dominate in the recruitment. You've proven that you could bring in the right transfer players and make them adequate for the team, but you haven't proven that you get it done on the field against other superior teams in the SEC. You win this one, now you're at the top of this food chain, and now you can really start making things work in Columbia.
Yeah, I think everything you said is right. I think it's, if they can win this game, I don't know if it's so much to deal with what expectations are for this year as much as it is for years to come. Because if you win this game, one, it is 2 top 25 wins, which is huge for the program. You're going to be talked about as a team that can contend for the SEC East and have a shot to win that side of the conference and get to the conference championship game. And also on top of that, the expectation of going into a year where Mizzou fans are doubting Eli Drinkwitz will not be there. It just won't. People will go into next season believing that this should be an 8-win program.
Absolutely.
In fact, they're probably going to hold that to Eli Drinkwitz the rest of his time at Mizzou.
As they should.
As they should, because he's proven, heading into this year, I mean, look at Luther Burden in year 2, 5-star recruit. He's proven he can get the recruits here. Best recruiting coach Missouri's probably ever had.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the whole thing around him, to your point on the 6-6 seasons, was, okay, it's one thing to bring in talent. Can you coach the talent? And I was very skeptical of that coming into this year. And now it looks like that is changing. Let me rephrase it. Not looks like. It has changed. He has shown the ability to coach up these guys. Luther Burden looks like a legitimate SEC caliber wide receiver this year. And a win this weekend against LSU, or even if say they lose this game, but they end up beating like Georgia or Kentucky, and they are fighting for that SEC championship game spot. Expectations change across this program, not just this year, but for years to come in the Eli Drinkwitz era. They will be from it going to, 6 wins would be great, or 7 wins would be great too. We expect you to be a team that's going to be contending for the SEC championship, and we expect 8-9 wins every year out of you.
The other thing about this that would be different for Eli than what we've seen so far, 5-0, I mean, it's nothing to sneeze at. What he's done so far has been nothing short of impressive. The win against K-State is, I think, his best win that he's had since coming over to Mizzou. The thing that would be different about this is while the K-State game was impressive, I think there are casual fans at a minimum that say, yeah, it's K-State though. It's not a name brand program. Like, as much as K-State has done really well under Chris Kleiman, it's still Kansas State. That's not an SEC peer. That's not one of the teams that you're competing against head-to-head for an SEC East title. It's Kansas State. Good win. Required a 60-some-odd yard field goal to do it, but good win. Do it against your peers. LSU is one of those peers. LSU has the talent to go head-to-head against you where Kansas State did not. K-State was at a talent deficit in that game. They try to beat you with scheme. They try to beat you by out-coaching you. LSU could beat you by talent. And going into this weekend, if Eli Drinkwitz is able to show, hey, K-State wasn't a fluke. Beating some of the teams that have been on their schedule, Memphis, not a fluke. Vandy last week, where we dominated them, not a fluke. That is what tomorrow should be about. It's about affirmation. It's about confirmation that this team can go up against any of the teams that are remaining on their schedule, not named Georgia, and win that game. Georgia's a different thing because that is the most talented team in the country. We'll see what happens with them. I think they might lose tomorrow. But
I was going to say,
they're the most talented team, even if they're not the best team in the country.
Depending on what Mizzou does against LSU and what Georgia does this weekend, my tone might change on that, too, in terms of how I view Mizzou going into that Georgia game.
Absolutely.
Because at the beginning of the season, I just assumed that was a loss.
This is the game that will change. Like, anybody that's still kind of teetering on the edge of believing, this is the game that'll make you into a believer. You got to find a way to get it done tomorrow in Columbia. All right, a couple other things across the college football landscape going into the weekend. It's a really good slate of college football, man. Really good. Oklahoma versus Texas in what used to be known as the Red River Shootout, now is known as the Red River Rivalry. T-Bone, we talked about this a little bit earlier today. I considered using this maybe as a game that I would look at as I continue to look more into it. I don't have the confidence on either side of the line in this game. Texas is a 5.5-point home favorite going up against Oklahoma. To me, this is an elimination game for the college football playoff. Whoever loses this one, you're done. You're not getting a one-loss Big 12 team into the college football playoff this year. So I think if Texas loses this one, they're out. I think if Oklahoma loses this one, they're definitely out. How do you feel about this game going into it?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you just said there. I think the loser of this is eliminated, and I think if Texas wins, and I think Texas is going to win, I'm kind of with you. I don't have a good feel on that 5.5-point spread. But if Texas wins, I think you can lock them into one of the 4 college football playoff spots. The rest of their schedule is pretty easy. They don't have a ranked team on the schedule left. They'll get into the conference championship game, and then they'll see a ranked team at that point. But I think Texas is the better team, and they should be the better team. They got the better quarterback in Ewers. I think they should win this football game. I think it will be close. Rivalry game. Oklahoma's going to be amped up, especially because they got blown out of the water last year. I think Texas wins this one, eliminates Oklahoma, and kind of solidifies themselves as a college football playoff team.
Yeah, I think this is the swing game for Texas in terms of if you win this one, I'm sold on not just them being one of the 4 playoff teams, but them being one of the favorites to win the whole thing this season.
Yeah, you've got the quarterback. You've got the coach. Now it's about going out and doing it again.
Yeah.
You did it against Bama. That was a huge win for you. You've been convincing in all of your other wins so far this year. Is there potential for a letdown later this season? Absolutely. But the odds are this is a team that should run the table from here. If Texas is able to take care of business tomorrow, I think they're going to be one of the teams that is represented in the college football playoff. Another team that might already be eliminated, but would certainly be so if they lose tomorrow, Alabama. Guys, this is a big one. Quietly a huge game on CBS. It's the midday slate. Alabama traveling to College Station to play against Texas A&M. A&M is going to be utilizing their backup quarterback again. This guy's had a ton of experience in his past. He started a couple of years ago at LSU, so it's not like this is some schmuck that's inserted into the lineup. A&M is one of the best defenses in the country. Their offense has been solid, if not spectacular, this year. Alex, are you expecting an upset here? Do you think that Texas A&M can actually pull this thing off?
I don't, but I think it's going to be close. That's going to drop them out of that 11 spot, then just keep moving them down. Like the problem for me is Texas A&M's defense is so good, and Alabama still doesn't even feel confident with their quarterback.
Yep.
And I don't know how you're going to be able to put up points like you've been putting up, at least in the last couple of games, to justify winning a football game. Now, can you exploit some of their offenses with your defense? Maybe, and that's why I think it's going to be closer. But I would side with the coach when it's this close, and I think I would go with a Nick Saban coached team.
Yeah, I think Alabama avoids the upset, but I think this is going to be just a fight to the very end. I think this is going to be very low scoring. The over-under in this is 46, which feels very low for a college game.
24-20, something like that.
I think I would take the under in that. I think Alabama survives. I think it's going to be close, but I think it is just going to be an absolute battle to the very end. I could see this being like 17-10 Alabama.
Yeah, I would not bet this because I don't have enough confidence in it. However, I like Texas A&M in this game. I really do. I think Alabama we've seen, it's just not the same team this year. Jalen Milroe, it's about time that they decided that he was for sure going to be their quarterback. He's clearly better than their alternatives, but he's no great quarterback by any stretch. He's a pretty good runner. He's not great as a thrower right now. I think Texas A&M's defense might score in this game. And if they do, that could be enough to be able to put them over the edge. I like the Texas A&M side. On Georgia, I've mentioned it a few times. Watch out, guys. If this game was in Kentucky, if it was in Lexington, I think I would be like full-throated believing that Kentucky's going to beat Georgia. I think Kentucky's just a better version of Georgia this year, which is strange to say. They've got the better quarterback in this game. I think they might have the better defense overall going into this game, especially on the run defense side of things. Georgia is going to have a massive game out of Brock Bowers in order to win because they don't really have anybody else that they throw to, and Kentucky can be beat a little bit through the air. But if you're going to try to ground and pound your way through this game, Kentucky's going to suffocate you, and they will find a way to win this one. I like Kentucky. I think it ends up being a very close game that is decided by like 3 to 7 points one way or the other. But this is a game that I think is worth monitoring tomorrow night that could ultimately determine the SEC East.
I'm taking Kentucky straight up to win this one. I have not been sold on Georgia, and I do think Kentucky's defense is going to cause a lot of issues for this Georgia offense. And frankly, I know that their defense is great, but that's the selling point. Like Georgia being able to put up points with all of the talent that they have. I do believe Kentucky wins this one straight up.
I think this will be close. This spread feels too big, but I'm not confident enough to pick against Georgia because I think at some point they will get things figured out. I trust Kirby Smart too much to get this Georgia team, who's #1 in the country. I don't think they're particularly great, but I think they're going to find a way to win this football game. I don't know if they cover 14.5. That spread feels a little too high, especially with that hook in there,
Agreed.
but I think they're able to survive against Kentucky and pull off a win.
All right, last thing here on the college football slate going into the weekend. It is a really, I like this Pac-12 slate heading into this one. It's like an under-the-radar, sneaky good matchup all across the board. Washington State, who is really good, and I underestimated them in that Oregon State game, travels to UCLA, where UCLA is a surprising 3.5-point home favorite. Colorado traveling to Arizona State. 1-4 Arizona State. And how about this, Alex? Colorado is only a 3.5-point favorite in that game as well. And then the late night capper, Arizona at USC. USC a 21-point favorite, which feels way too big in my opinion, going up against a scrappy and interesting Arizona team. Of those three games, Washington State versus UCLA, Colorado versus Arizona State, or Arizona versus USC, T-Bone, we'll start with you. Which one has captured your imagination, whether it's because of a betting side of things or something that you're wondering about for the big picture for college football?
I think it's USC Arizona because we saw how scrappy Arizona was with Washington, who I think has the best offense in college football. And if they find a way to be able to put up points, because I don't have faith in USC's defense to stop them. I think Washington's defense is better than what USC has defensively. I don't think Arizona wins this one outright. I'm not bold enough to take that. I do think they cover 21. I don't see USC covering this one unless just the floodgates open up, they get out to a big lead, and then they have to just start pressing a lot offensively. Things can go haywire there, but I like this late game between Arizona and USC. I think Arizona's going to cover that 21-point spread.
I mean, I'm interested in seeing USC because after you score 48 points against Colorado and Deion Sanders, and then obviously you give up the amount of points that you did late, I do want to see kind of what USC looks like against a better opponent. I am curious about Colorado, though. I mean, that's 2 games that you have just been shell-shocked by ranked opponents. Now you're going back against unranked opponents. Can you get back to the level of excitement that you had at the beginning of the season, or have you just completely dropped off this year?
And one more thing on this USC game, it feels like a trap game because next weekend they go to Notre Dame, a game that is going to be prime time, NBC 6:30. That game against Arizona, I could see where USC's overlooking them, going, oh, we can walk through Arizona. They're not ranked. We could beat them. They lay a bit of an egg in that first half. Things become interesting.
And they had the emotional game last week against Colorado. Next week, you travel to Notre Dame, like you said, nationally televised game between 2 top 10 ranked teams potentially. And in between, you got a home game against Arizona. I don't know, man. I'm totally with you. I think there's some emotional letdown potential there. The one that I'm most curious about is the one that's getting no pub whatsoever, is Washington State at UCLA. Hey, man, I'm not going to bet on this. I just want to watch it. I'm kind of surprised UCLA is a 3.5-point home favorite in that one. Cam Ward is the best quarterback nobody talks about. That dude is unbelievable, man. And they've got some wide receivers on that team that are really fun to watch as well. So Washington State is one of those teams that goes completely under the radar. Their quarterback has 13 touchdowns, no interceptions through the year, and has run for another 3 as well. He's a stud. So that's one of those games that I will be watching and monitoring on Saturday as well. All right, coming up next, is there any scenario in which, I'm going to say the words that nobody wants to hear, it would make sense for the Cardinals to trade Nolan Arenado?
Why would you say that?
We'll discuss it coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Okay. None of us actually want to talk about this, but we got to do it. Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley.
It's like Voldemort. You can't say it.
So, we've talked around it. We've talked through it. We've gone through it at the trade deadline. And we're going to go ahead and do it again.
Let's go again.
Alex, is there any scenario in which it would make sense for the Cardinals this offseason to trade Nolan Arenado?
Why would you say something like that? You yelled at me when I brought up the idea of Paul Goldschmidt, and now you want to trade the better of the two?
Yeah, Goldie was the better.
It's okay.
How many gold gloves did he got?
Fair. Yeah, a lot.
It's not respected.
Do you think there's any scenario where it makes sense?
I don't. I really don't. I mean, there always is a scenario where it makes sense, especially if somebody's willing to deal up a young stud starting pitcher who's at that ace caliber, under cost controlled. But I don't know who that is that a team's going to be willing to give that up for just Nolan Arenado. And I don't see a scenario. Look, if you want to blow it all up and be bad for the next 5 years, then go for it. But Nolan Arenado is going to be a part of this offense. And you went full-fledged offense this past offseason and saying, if we're going to win, it's because we have the best damn lineup in baseball. And now you're going to trade that piece away, who also is one of your best, if not the best defender at third base, and you're just going to say, nah, we're going to move on from it. So I don't see a scenario of it. Unless there are more underlying issues that we don't know about, if you trade Nolan Arenado, to me, you're stating we're not going for it this year.
We talk all the time when we're talking about would you trade for a young cost control pitcher. We talk about Gilbert. We talk about Luzardo from Miami. We talk all these different guys. Cease from the White Sox. We always talk about the pieces that would be involved, and it is Nootbaar, it's Donovan, it's Gorman. And I don't think when we talk about the Jenga board, if you pull one of those guys out, does it topple over? I don't think it does if you pull out a Gorman or a Nootbaar or a Donovan. I think the piece where it would topple over, though, is if you pulled out Arenado, because I don't think that your lineup would still be good if you traded him, but it wouldn't be one of the best in baseball, because you now have to bump up Contreras, you now have to bump up Gorman or Walker, and instead of having a lineup that's deep 1 through 8 like I think they are right now, it becomes 1 through 7, which sounds like not a lot of a difference. But when you realize who you're pulling out of there, you're pulling out one of the best third basemen in this generation. So I think it would be the piece that would topple over. Now, I will say this. I could understand if the Cardinals would say, if somebody wants to take his contract, one, we would have more money free to spend on starting pitching, have more flexibility, and maybe, and I'm just throwing this out there, I don't think it's true, maybe you're selling high on Arenado. And I say that because 2 of his first 3 years here in St. Louis have been down years. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago, me and Alex did. Is it super alarming? Are there red alarm bells going off in my head? No, but it is something to keep an eye on. 2 of the 3 years that Arenado has had here, based on Arenado expectations of himself, have been disappointing years from the St. Louis Cardinals' perspective.
Yeah, I mean, if you just go by, like, OPS plus, right? His first year here, he was at 119. This past season, he was at 109. His career while he was in Colorado was at 121. And that's including his first season when he really struggled. Ever since, he was like 130 almost every single season. So you're 100% correct. Based on his own standards, 2 of the last 3 years have been, relatively speaking, underwhelming offensively. And this past season was underwhelming defensively. Let me ask you this, because my stance is very simple on this. You don't trade Nolan Arenado.
Not if you
just don't do it. You have Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado. Those guys are future Hall of Famers. You keep them and you build around them and you figure it out. Like, that is my firm and simple stance on this matter. Now, if I were to play devil's advocate, my devil's advocate case would be this. Who's going to be better over the next 3 years? Nolan Arenado or Nolan Gorman? And do you have to really think about it?
I got to think about it?
I don't think I do. I mean, frankly, like, look,
we're talking about age 33 to 35 for Nolan Arenado. Both of them have some potential back issues that they're dealing with. Third base is technically Nolan Gorman's natural position defensively. And I'm just asking straight up, between those 2 guys, who do you think will be more productive over the next 3 years between the 2 of them? I don't think it's crazy if you came to the conclusion, I think Nolan Gorman is going to be the one that ends up being more productive over those 2, of the 2 over the next 3 years. I'm not talking about anything in their history. purely projecting forward over the next 3 years. I think that's how you get to the starting point of being curious about what it looks like if you were to trade Nolan Arenado. Part 2 of this equation, do you currently have a center fielder on your team? If your answer to that question is no, then we continue down this discussion. Okay, that means Lars Nootbaar is going over to left field. I have Jordan Walker in right field. That opens up second base potentially for Brendan Donovan, who can now be my everyday second baseman that's going to be there for me. All right, now I go out there and acquire a center fielder. Maybe it's Kevin Kiermaier, for example, who's going to be a free agent this year. That's $10 million. All right, well, Nolan Arenado was taking up $35 million on my salary sheet. I've now spent $10 million of that on a defense-first center fielder. Now I can go back to the market, and for $25 million, I'm getting I'm getting Sonny Gray, and now I'm going to go out and trade Nolan Arenado for Bobby Miller. I think that is what it potentially looks like, where you say to yourself, all right, I'm spending that money that I saved from Nolan Arenado on one pitcher, I'm trading him for another pitcher, and now I'm going out there and signing one of Snell, Yamamoto, or Nola with the money I was already planning to spend in free agency anyways. So now my rotation has been remade with one of those number one starters that we talk so much about, Sonny Gray and Bobby Miller at the front end. Miles Mikolas is now your number 4 starter. Number 5 starter is now a competition between Steven Matz, Zach Thompson, anybody else that could be involved. That's how you convince yourself that this is the way that you should go. I'm not there. I say screw all of that, spend the money. Go get the guys that you need. But if you wanted to have the conversation about how you get yourself into a mindset of trading Nolan Arenado, I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean, that to me, that sounds like a dominant team. My only hesitation with that is I don't really know what Nolan Gorman is at third base because he hasn't done it since the minors, and he's been at second base. And the defense is fine, but is the defense going to be what Nolan Arenado has provided you? And also, I mean, I know it's been only, 2 years with him, but it has been inconsistent with Nolan Gorman. And there is a boomer-bust mentality with him that I'd be a little worried about, whereas Nolan Arenado, it still seems to be boomer-bust, but when he's at his best, he's still making contact and he's still getting on base. So I wouldn't do it. I'm with you. I think I would just say, bleep it, spend the money. You've got money. Go spend it and make your team that good with Nolan Arenado, because you win when you have a Gold Glove 30-plus home run player every season. Okay. But, yeah, I mean, if that's the scenario in front of me, I'd consider it.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it either, just to be 100% clear. But if you do go down that path and get to that conclusion, I mean, we talked about this before the show when we were having this discussion of this segment. Who's a team that is in their winning window that wasn't selling one of their top players on their team that's a superstar, by the way, was selling him at any point? Like, I can't remember a time when a team that's trying to get back to winning sold off arguably their best player.
When you do Mookie Betts.
But
that didn't go over well.
But I don't think the Red Sox, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the Red Sox were in a winning window at that point.
I think you could argue that they were still trying. They were trying to do what the Cardinals do, which is compete on a year-to-year basis by winning, 90 games. That 2019 season, they had won 84 games going into the following year. So they were trying to compete, but they were trying to do so at the Cardinals level of
And
competing.
they thought they were bringing in a young player that was going to be like, they were striking gold with this, where it's like, oh, Verdugo's going to turn into a stud for us.
Let's be honest. If you trade Arenado, the more likely outcome is it becomes like the Red Sox trade. Not so much that you end up going on and losing a ton of games, but you lose the trade. It's why, like, when we had the conversation about Ohtani, again, different conversation, but I said they should sell him. To BK's point, you're never going to win that trade. The more likely outcome is if you do sell Arenado, you're not going to win that trade. And that's the part that I think is where you got to tell yourself you can't pull off this deal.
The other thing that's really hard here is I don't think you're getting Bobby Miller for Nolan Arenado. Like, somebody on the text line said, guys, doesn't he have a no-trade clause? He does. If he was going to waive it, I would assume it's the Dodgers. Like, I think you are very limited in terms of where you can actually have these negotiations, and that also limits what you're going to be able to get in return. If Bobby Miller if the Dodgers called you today and said, we'll trade you Bobby Miller for Nolan Arenado straight up, I think there's at least a discussion and a meeting that takes place in St. Louis. I'm not reporting that. That is if I were in Mo's shoes, we at least have to talk about this, because that's one of the best young pitchers in baseball with a ton of club control, and we're removing $35 million from the books for years to come. I at least have to talk about it. I say no personally, but it's a conversation. I don't think that is something that the Dodgers would consider because they're also in a spot where they're kind of in a place of transition with their rotation too. Bobby Miller's the next guy. He should be the next number one starter in L.A. You don't trade that guy, just like the Cardinals don't trade Nolan Arenado. You build around that guy because it's really hard to find the next version of that guy. If I was to guess, they would be more likely to offer you some of the other like secondary young starting pitching. Yeah. And if that's the route they're going, man, I ain't trading Nolan Arenado for any of that.
Agreed.
I need the guy.
Give me the ace.
That's going to change my rotation. Yep. And if I'm not getting that, then I'm looking at other pieces that can get me that guy.
It's what we just talked about with Arizona earlier in the show, where if I'm going to trade from my strength, which is offense, I need it to be damn good coming the other way. That's my weakness. And unless it is, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I will put a finer point on this. Any offseason for the Cardinals that requires trading Nolan Arenado for starting pitching, I would deem to be a failure. I think that would mean they decided either they were not attractive enough to free agents, which is concerning, or they were unwilling to give the money that was necessary for free agents, or they decided we would rather trade Nolan Arenado than any of our young players, all of which highly concerning. Yeah. So I would deem any of those scenarios, we'll see what the return is. If they get like Spencer Strider for him, maybe I'm singing a different tune, right? But barring something unforeseen, that is very likely to be a failure of an offseason.
And just real quick on that second point that you made, it shows that they weren't willing to spend the necessary money on pitching. They didn't change the model. And the
Correct.
Model is the most important thing that's going to change.
Well, they kind of did, though. They changed the model in that they typically build around legacy players, and they would be deciding that we're no longer building around a legacy player.
Okay, the spending model maybe would be the better way to say this, because that's the model that's got to change. They can no longer just try and piece it together with smaller deals in their pitching staff. They've got to be willing to spend big dollars on pitchers, and that's what the winning teams are doing. We talked about earlier how if you go back and reconstruct these World Series or these playoff teams right now, what they do, they spend money. Look at the Texas Rangers. Yeah. They didn't go, well, we're not good enough, so we got to trade Corey Seager for a starting pitcher. They didn't do that. They said, screw it, let's go spend the money and go get the starters that we need.
That's T-Bone. He's Alex on BK. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You give us 4 different options. We'll tell you which one's got to go here on 101 ESPN.
Grant Francis here with a SportsCenter update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Last night, the Blues were in Dallas taking on the Stars. Jordan Binnington and the Blues shut out Dallas 4-0. A 25-save performance in the shutout for Jordan Binnington. Robert Thomas scored twice. Jake Neighbors had a goal. Justin Falk as well in the 4-0 win. Alexei Toropchenko got injured yesterday at practice, a lower body injury. He did practice today, so that looks promising for St. Louis, who will be back in action tomorrow here on 101 ESPN. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock for Blues and Blackhawks, the last preseason game of the preseason. That'll get started at 7 o'clock puck drop, 6 o'clock pregame here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. And before that, Oklahoma and Texas, some college football for you. That pregame will be at 11 o'clock. I'm Grant Francis. This is the SportsCenter Update's been driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your roads and shop 24/7 at londoff.com and londoffautoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
Count that big pen.
Couple bits of news to get to before we get to One's Gotta Go here in just a minute. First of all, Sean McVay just told the media that Cooper Kupp will indeed play on Sunday against the Eagles. Feeling good about my upset pick in that one. The other thing that I wanted to get to, Alex, this one's for you. Sounds like the Carolina Hurricanes have released Zach Aston Reese, a man that we've talked about way too much on this show.
Yeah, he's our pre-Ross Colton
PTO. He was with the Leafs last year, scored 10 goals. He's a center, has played that role in the past.
And actually one of the better defensive centermen in the NHL.
As a fourth liner. Is he somebody that you would look at if you were the Blues? If he was willing to take on that role as the 13th forward that plays, 40 games this year, kind of filtering into that fourth line, would you do it if you're the Blues?
Absolutely.
He's worth losing Nikita Alexandrov over?
I think so.
No.
It's protection for Oscar Sundqvist, and I'd want an NHL-ready player. And I guess this is the balance of winning now or winning in the next couple of years like they're talking about, because that's where you try and divvy up the Alexandrov versus Ross for Zach Aston Reese. Here's the thing, though. I think you could sneak Alexandrov through waivers. I mean, there have been guys that have been drafted top 10 in the NHL that have been on waivers and have cleared. This season, when the cap is still so tight, teams aren't going to give up players that they have to put them through waivers to pick up somebody who's only played 20 games in the NHL. So, yeah, I think backup for an Oscar Sundqvist would be good because, the guy, he says he feels as great as ever. But when you have as many injuries as he's had, I'd be concerned about it.
And you're going to have to do some load management with him. And if he gives you 50 games this year, you feel pretty good about that.
And I want a dude who's been in the NHL, who's great defensively, and, by the way, he's good at faceoffs.
He's big.
He's big.
He's got the size that you were looking for with Nick Ritchie whenever you signed him.
So I would
to
do
the
it.
PTO. I'd like it. I wonder if he's going to get an opportunity elsewhere, though, that ends up giving him like 80 games as opposed to what he could get with the Blues. All right, One's got to go. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Guys, One's got to go. $100,000 in cash. All of your bills paid for over the next 25 years. Mizzou football winning in the playoff.
Okay, well, that's going to go.
Or the NFL back in St. Louis.
Mizzou's got to go. I love me my Tigers, but I would love to have the NFL back in St. Louis. As much as I know people hate the NFL and what they've did, understandable. But if you're telling me I could get an expansion team that I know is mine, I'd take that over Mizzou. And frankly, those other two, those win every day of the week. 25 years of bills being paid? Hell yes.
Yeah. I'm with you. Get rid of Missouri
Get
football.
out of here, man. I'm sorry to all you St. Louis football fans. We can all jump on the Mizzou bandwagon.
No,
Mizzou winning the college football playoff, that is something that we would remember for the rest of our lives.
No, it's forgettable.
We want one time. One time. That's all we need. One's got to go. The NFL back in St. Louis. I'm sorry.
That's the worst take you've ever given.
Dude, I would love. Can I also add, like, if the NFL's back in St. Louis, can we get sports betting in St. Louis too, so I can add that into it
on the Missouri side at least?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I get you.
Yeah, I'd like to.
One's got to go. Fall.
go listen to the podcast page if you don't know what the hell we're talking about. 101ESPN.com.
One's got to go fall edition. Pumpkin spice lattes, apple cider, hot chocolate. Which one's got to go?
Who does hot chocolate in the fall? Oh, he does hot chocolate in the summer.
100%.
Yeah, I know he does. I know he does.
It's
That's
like
terrible.
not my number one go-to.
That's terrible, dude.
But like if I want to go sit out or be outside on like a cool fall
That's gross.
night, a
That's
little hot cocoa
That's
with some
stupid.
whipped cream.
But the proper
Woo!
answer here is apple cider.
Yeah, apple cider's not that great.
Who likes apples? The only time I've ever used apple cider is in cooking.
Interesting. I'm surprised that you don't like apple cider. I
Nah,
feel
I'm
like
just not big on
2-year-old
it.
taste.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was Tummy's upset when he's going to go to bed. And when you got to do his Betty bye.
Pumpkin spice latte. When you like,
Tis the season, buddy. Tis the season.
I might get one before my road trip today.
All right, one's got to go. Potential Cardinals pitching options this offseason. Tyler Glasnow, Yamamoto, Dylan Cease, or Logan Gilbert. Which one's got to go? I'll start with you, T-Bone.
I think
this is easy.
I think I might say Cease here.
Yep, agreed.
Agreed.
I know Glasnow's
Sweep
dealing
it.
with injury issues.
Don't
that
care.
guy's stuff is awesome. And Yamamoto, like we don't know what he is exactly yet when he comes over, but everybody says he's better than Senga. And Senga was pretty good. And Logan
Not better than
Gilbert's good
Kikuchi.
too. Cease has been inconsistent. That's my concern with him. So I say he's got to go.
Tyler Glasnow, if the Rays are actually listening to him this offseason, like the offers that could be had, he should be right up there.
Tyler
among
O'Neill
the
would play there, right?
No, sorry. Turf.
unlikely.
And like, let's just be honest, Mo doesn't answer phone calls from Tampa anymore.
Nor should he. The final thing here.
I would for
One's
that.
got to go fall activity edition, a trip to the winery, apple picking, weddings, or college football.
Oh, man, there are 3 bad ones on here. College football stays for sure.
Yep.
I'm not a big wine guy, so I could care less about a winery trip.
And you also don't have somebody to go to the winery with.
Well,
Was that mean?
it was me.
Sorry about that.
That was pretty rough.
Sorry about
Apple picking, that just sounds boring.
that
as
was
hell.
worse than what Jamie said about me yesterday.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I heard the Jamie cut.
Am I being honest, though?
I don't have interest in weddings. So like I guess if I had to pick one, I guess I'll get rid of the
All
winery
of these are
trip.
great, man.
No, they're not. Weddings stink.
Yeah.
Come on.
I'm done with weddings. Like
I got
I've
a wedding that I'm very excited about tomorrow.
Yeah,
Do
I've
you?
heard.
Congratulations to the Millers.
We're the Millers.
No, we're not the Millers,
Oh,
but
okay.
they are going to be the Millers.
Scotty P, no regrets. I have one more wedding that's coming up, and it's my brother-in-law that's getting married at the end of this month. And I told my wife, no more weddings for me. Done.
My one's got to go.
Not until
would
my
be
daughters get married.
Apple picking would be the ones that.
Oh my God, I love apple
I do
picking.
too, but I like all of these things.
Especially
I'm
now
unlike
with
you
the
guys.
girls.
I like these. Yeah, when you have kids, you'll understand.
But I mean, Katie and I used to go too.
You know why I won't understand? Because we won't go apple picking.
Coming up next,
Was you got to go by yourself, and that's not fun.
the rewind here
I
on
hate you.
101 ESPN.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely on advertisements.
STL today, the vote is in, and there's no need for a recount. I'm Jim Onder, and I want to thank you, the people of St. Louis, for acknowledging my team and Onder Law as STL Today's 2023's best law firm in St. Louis. As always, we will continue our mission to hold companies accountable, change the way they do business, and make St. Louis a safer place.
When you're injured, you need the best. Call Onder Law at 314 or 618-9000000.
Open up your 101 mobile app for your chance at a 4-pack of passes to the St. Louis Renaissance.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check out the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It is all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Center.
You guys can also go back and watch the show on YouTube, youtube.com/101ESPN. The studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team each and every day here on BK and Ferrario. Coming up this weekend, we've got the beginning of the divisional series, boys. You got Rangers versus Orioles, Twins versus the Astros, Phillies, Braves, and the Diamondbacks versus the Dodgers. There is a bit of a scheduling quirk. The National League will have game number ones tomorrow, and then will not play a game until Monday. They've got more off days in the National League side of things than what I think most people would like.
It's so stupid that there's like 4 days of no baseball.
It's weird.
With one playoff game like tweaked in between. It's so dumb.
The AL team's going to be like, what?
Yeah.
We got to go back to back?
It's weird.
Rob Manfred's like, nobody cares about the American League.
Let's get into our picks. Rangers versus the Orioles. Who you got?
Rangers, and I think Rangers win it in 3.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa. I've got Baltimore in 5. I think that goes the distance. Oh, damn.
I do too.
Nailed it.
Twins versus the Astros. Who you got?
I think I'm going to go the Astros here. I want the Twins, but I'd say Astros. I think that's going to go 5, though.
I've got Astros in 4. I think the Twins win one home game.
T-Bone, you're going to lose all of these.
Would you have your own thought over there?
Phillies versus the Braves. I'll start here to give my own thought. I've got the Phillies in 5.
No. No. Atlanta in 4. It was a stupid idea.
I think I'm with Alex. I think I like Atlanta in this one in 4 games.
And the final one, I'll go ahead and start again.
Well, you have your own idea? Damn.
Here. Diamondbacks versus the Dodgers. I've got the Diamondbacks winning this thing in 5.
I actually think the Diamondbacks win it in 4.
That's kind of where I am. I think it's going to be either Diamondbacks in 4 or 5. I don't think they can sweep them. I just don't think the Dodgers have enough pitching to get through this. And they're even getting a damn off day.
They don't have a rotation.
No.
Like, I'm not saying that it's not that their rotation is bad. It is that they do not currently have
their
one.
rotation currently is bad. They got Lance Lynn in this rotation.
Hey!
They're going to piece this thing together with like 3-inning starts basically every single time. I read this yesterday. Clayton Kershaw has not made a start on less than 5 days rest since June.
Yeah,
he is a guy that he's only making one start probably in this series.
His velo is where Waino was.
I bet you we see him twice in this series, and I bet you it's why he retires after this year. Like, he's going to go, like, just say, bleep it, let's go one more year, and then I'm done.
Bobby Miller has to be the best player in this series for the Dodgers to be able to get out of it. And that's just asking a lot of a guy that's 24 years old and is in his first year in the big leagues and was really good this year. And I think is an excellent pitcher long term, but I think that's going to be asking too much.
God, that's Walker Bueller's music.
The two teams that I'm most concerned about with their pitching, I am more concerned than T-Bone is with the Braves and their rotation, and I'm very concerned about the Dodgers and what they have pitching-wise.
I think Fried's going to be fine on that blister. I read a stat, and I looked this up earlier in the show. I don't have it in front of me anymore, but Fried had a early portion this year where he had like 6-7 days coming off of some issue.
Correct.
And he came back and he was solid for them. So I think he's going to be fine.
I'm not worried about the layoff. I'm worried about the blister. Like, he's got a significant
We saw blisters and
blister
how it affects people.
I think he's going to be fine. I think the Dodgers are the one that I'm super concerned about. And I was just going to say this. I think it's the worst thing for baseball if the Dodgers get through this series.
Oh, I would agree with that.
Because a lot of teams will look at that and go, see, we can just throw kind of toothpicks and bubble gum in a playoff rotation
we'll
in
see.
advance.
I wait till the NLCS for that, because the Diamondbacks, for all of that we're excited about, they won 84 games this year. This is not like some overwhelming powerhouse. If they do that, if the Dodgers end up in the World Series, that's horrible for baseball. Horrible.
Cardinals, if that happens, it's going to be like, Michael, take the scuba gear off. We're going snorkeling.
Can't wait. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You guys have a fantastic weekend. We got some great college football coming up. MIZZOU, big game tomorrow. Great NFL slate for you as well. And, of course, a full slate of postseason baseball. And Alex is going to have your coverage for the Blues tomorrow as well.
But
looking forward to all of it. Blues in action tomorrow. The Fast Lane's coming up next. You're on 101 ESPN.